Call this meeting to order. I've got something written here. So this is the last meeting for our CEO, Brad McRoberts, before enjoying his retirement. His last day will be tomorrow. Brad has had a 36-year career ending with his last 4 years here at Huron East. During this time, Brad has led Huron East through many positive changes, such as service delivery review, the economic development strategic plan, a pay equity review, and the corporate strategic plan. Council would like to thank Brad for his dedication to Huron East over the last 4 years and congratulate him on his retirement. Nothing yet. That's what staff wrote, which is all correct. I just want to put my personal comments in, Brad. It has been a pleasure working with you. I really appreciate the way you approach the job. I never doubted that you always did as much research as you could to get as much information so that council was well informed. Doesn't mean we can always find everything, but I knew it was in your nature to try and have as much information available to be able to make a good decision, and I appreciated that. And from time to time, you even thought you had your mind made up on something, you give me a call and I'd throw a wrench into it with a different idea, and you were always willing, if there was a good suggestion, to reconsider something. So it was never cast in stone before there was a full discussion, which I think is a sign of a good leader to begin with. I've come to you at times when there was discussion about possible things being suggested at the county, and I just wanted to know from staff's perspective how it would affect Huron East as a municipality, and also how it would work with the office staff and the operation that we run. And you always give me good advice, and I appreciate that, and I will miss you here. Not that you're leaving us in bad hands. I do appreciate the fact that you mentored Jess and she's moving up the ladder. But I do thank you very much, and I've enjoyed the time together.
Thank you.
Thanks. I need a mover and a seconder to reconvene into open session. Councillor Morrison and Councillor Newell. All those in favor? And motion carries. And that was at 6:02. Reporting out, council went into closed session to discuss proposed or pending disposition of land. Number 4, our land acknowledgement. We would like to acknowledge that the land we stand upon today is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the Neutral Peoples. Can I get a mover and a seconder for confirmation of the agenda, please? Councillor Dalton and Councillor Wilby. All those in favor? I'm curious. Can I get a mover and a seconder for the agenda for June 24th? Councillor Morrison, Councillor Steffler, that the agenda for the regular meeting of council dated June 24th, 2025 be adopted as circulated. All those in favor? Motion carries. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest from any member of council this evening? Councillor Steffler.
12.6, the homecoming report.
Okay, do that. Can I get a mover and a seconder for approval of the minutes of the previous meeting? Deputy Mayor and Councillor Wilby, that the council of the municipality of Huron East approve the following council meeting minutes as circulated, and that's the regular meeting of June 10th, 2025. Any comments or questions on the minutes? All those in favor? And motion carries. We have a number of items under the consent agenda. Are there any requests to remove any item from that? Councillor Chartrand.
Yes, I'd like to talk to 8.6.
Okay, can you bring it up right now? Go ahead.
I guess I'm looking for the report itself, I guess self-explanation, but is there more to this report than we know? Like what we've been asking about this Omnicare and how's it going? All we've ever been told is I can't say anything. Is this as a result of a meeting? The letter came from you, Mr. Mayor, so I guess I'm asking you.
I can speak to it.
Go ahead, Brad.
So
Omni's still in the process of trying to get their license. And so licensing process, that I had some inquiries about the planning process and what the planning approvals would be for that property. And so we just wrote that letter in support of that planning process. So that's really all it is. That's all that the stage is right now. So it means the ministry is at least looking at their application and it's in the process and they're asking questions. So it's a positive sign.
Were we successful at getting a delegation at AMO for this topic?
Haven't heard anything as of yet.
You wouldn't hear that till 2 weeks before AMO, would you?
And sometimes it can be that late, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Deputy Mayor?
Can I ask for, thank you, Mr. Mayor, can I ask for 8.5? Support it, please. It speaks to, the Canadian soil requiring, preservation of Canadian soil, requiring, the whole of the government approach to saving that. So I'd like to follow support that at this place.
Okay, so is there a seconder for that? Councillor Fisher, any comments or questions? All those in favor? And motion carries. Is there any other, oh, Councillor Fisher,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's 8.3, the one about the vets. Remuneration or support, increasing the support
you're
for
correct,
veterans.
yes,
I would like to pull that one, please, Mr. Mayor. I think it's pretty obvious. Can't live on 20 grand a year, I don't think. Unless you have a cardboard box beside the road, basically.
is there a seconder for the motion? Moved by Councillor Wilby. All those in favor? And the motion carries. All right, we've got 3 left. Anybody want to pull another one? Seeing, oh,
Now,
Deputy
I'm
Mayor.
just gonna make a motion to support the rest, or to file the rest.
Okay, and do I have a second? Councillor Stefler, that the consent agenda items 8.1, 8.2, and 8.4 be received for information and approved. All those in favor? Motion carries. We're down to public meetings, hearings, and delegations. In 9.1, delegation emergency management group, the fire service review. Lynn Kwan. Welcome.
Thank you, your work. Thank you to members of the council. There is a, oh, there we go. Wonderful. Well, first off, we thank Mayor, Council, and the staff for the opportunity for the emergency management group to be involved in the master fire plan process. Tonight, the presentation is going to be very high level to give a basic overview of the process that we went through, some of the recommendations, and then we'll open it up for questions from council. So next slide, please. So the deliverables themselves, if we could, thank you. Basically, there were 4 key deliverables here. The first one was just simply to conduct a nice, open, and meaningful process. And that was through getting input through interviews, surveys, internal and external, a review of the fire department divisions, the vehicles, the facilities, assess mutual aid and automatic aid agreements. And then, of course, present recommendations with the strategic process in mind, aligning timelines and implementation and estimated costing to each of the recommendations. Next slide, please. So the key focus for this fire service review revolves around 3 lines of defense. Next slide, please. If you could get all, thank you. So the Office of the Fire Marshal identifies several lines of defense, which incorporate fire prevention, code enforcement, public safety, and also fire suppression itself. We also see emergency management itself as being kind of like that 4th spur, that 4th hub to the overall safety and security of the community. So this was the model that we looked at, when we looked at all the services, the stations, the locations and response time. And next slide, please. So along with the assistance and input from staff and stakeholders, we have been able to complete a full review of the department and the services offered through the following steps. So the research and information, the data gathering, as we've already talked about, the draft recommendations and discussions around the draft recommendations. So the draft report was presented to the fire chief and the CAO for their input to ensure that we had covered all the goals and expectations of this master the fire service review itself. And then we brought the report forward to council as we are doing tonight. So next slide, please. Now, throughout this, there were numerous performance measurements and standards that we followed. The Office of the Fire Marshal is one of the key ones. They set certain standards that the fire services shall do, certain processes such as fire prevention, public education, fire inspections. There's the National Institute of Standards and Technology that does review on fire services and also how efficient processes are. Fire underwriters, also council approved policies. So there's a whole list here, and I don't need to go through the whole list. But we looked at all the standards that are out there, any of the best practices that are available. So when we make a recommendation, it wasn't just because it seemed like the good thing to do that day. It was because there was a standard or some kind of best practice that was out there that makes this recommendation also a valid recommendation. And next slide, please. So overall, there's 48 recommendations that are either operational or strategic in their focus. Now, when we talk about this, when we talk about operational, we mean that this is a recommendation that can be addressed by the fire chief and staff. So there's, I'll say, little cost assigned to it because it's staff time and the availability of staff to do that recommendation. And that could be something as basic as updating an operating guideline or evaluating response times or things like that. The strategic recommendations are those that carry a cost to them and a high cost. And those are the key ones that we're going to talk about tonight. Now, to give you an idea, the majority of the recommendations are operational in nature. So the 48 recommendations, about three dozen of them are really operational in nature. So it's something that the fire chief can work with his staff and improve the department through staff time and effort. And if you could hit the button a few times there, please. So when we did the recommendations, it came around these kind of things. So the governance of the organization. And when we talk about governance, the establishing and regulating bylaw. And that's a very important thing for a fire service and the community because the establishing and regulating bylaw is council's marching orders to the fire chief. That's where council says, you shall do this. The fire department shall do this. So we look at that and that's kind of the foundation. We say, are you meeting those approved standards and service levels approved by council? Or if you're not, why not? So these are some of the key things we look at. Of course, we go through administration, fire prevention, staffing, training. Training's a big thing that's happened in the fire service in Ontario, in which the fire marshal a couple of years ago mandated training for all firefighters. At the time that this was all brought about, I was actually working at the fire marshal's office at that time. And I was a very big supporter of it. I know there's a great level of involvement by the firefighters and also a cost to the community. But the training is something that really is mandatory. So that's something that we looked at. Of course, the apparatus, emergency operations, and then finally the budget and finance itself. Next slide, please. So the strategic recommendations. I guess I should have gotten rid of all these bullet things. So the strategic recommendations are to increase the administrative support for the fire department and its division. So that one, you're looking, if you hire someone full-time, It could be $60,000 to $70,000. It could be less, could be a little more. These are basic estimates. Options for relocation and or building of a fire station. The new Seaforth station, if we, that's one of the recommendations. You're looking at anywhere from $5 to $10 million for a fire station nowadays. And why so much? Because they have to be built to post-disaster standards. So the day of the, and forgive me, I don't mean to sound disrespectful to anybody, but the day of the Quonset hut kind of fire station are days that are gone by. And also, a real note that I found out too is that if you look at an old station and you say, well, let's just add on to it and let's, you know, put an extra 200 square feet. As soon as you do that, the whole building now has to become post-disaster. So sometimes you're better off just to build new again. Installation of proper diesel exhaust extraction system. This is a health and safety regulation that this is one of the key problems in the fire service is cancer. There's quite a few cancers that are identified by health and safety. And having this diesel exhaust system at the station helps to reduce that possibility. And to have the annual live fire burn. Now, in this one, this is where council also has an option. If you go out and you purchase a live fire training unit, I found that some departments, they've been able to have one built for about $200,000 up to $700,000. When I was with the fire marshal's office, we ordered 2 live fire burn trailers, and they were, at that time, they were $500,000 a piece. Now, the good news about that is that the fire marshal has invested in those live fire training units. And they are available to fire departments if they book them ahead of time. So the fire chief has that ability. So the community has the option of building your own facility or trying to get the fire marshal's units. Now, I've also heard that they're planning on ordering a couple more because they're in great demand. Next slide, please. So the key thing, one of the key things was the Seaforth Fire Station. So this station, as you can see by the pictures, it's a relatively old station. It's in many ways outlived its usefulness. I don't think it was even built to be a fire station, to be quite honest. Some of the pictures that we show, it shows that it's well, there's stuff everywhere around the station. One of the key health and safety things at each fire station is a good shower, a decontamination shower. And the only thing at the station is one of these units that were put there. I mean, that's better than nothing, but there are a lot of things that need to be done to that station. We don't do engineering testing like non-destructive testing to check things. That's something that council may want to do before you invest in a new station. But as I say, if you try to add on to the station, then you're kind of committed to now the whole building has to be post-disaster. So that was one of the key recommendations. Next slide, please. Another one that we presented was the relocation of a fire station. And we looked at the 3 stations there, and as you can see, 2 of the stations, the Brussels and the
Great.
thank you very much. The Gray station are very close to each other, and the response coverage overlaps. So if you look at the options, you could close Brussels or you could close Gray. Now, Brussels, you just did a major upgrade in. You put that EMS facility there. So there is a lot of money put into that. Now, the proposed fire station, if you do close Gray and open another fire station in the location that we put there, which would be whatever land is available within that area. But when you look at that, you can see that it offers a great deal of coverage for the whole community by doing that. So again, another thing to consider, especially with considering whether what you're gonna do with Seaforth. My recommendation right now would be that Seaforth is more important than looking at getting another fire station in the center at this point. Next slide, please. So I talked about the operational recommendations, and that this is where the fire chief and his staff can work on these things themselves. And they basically come to things like better identify the training needs of the department. So the fire chief can look at the fire marshal standards, what needs to be done, who's qualified, who isn't qualified, what do they need to be qualified to. Have a succession plan for those aspiring to be promoted. You have a lot of dedicated volunteer firefighters that would like to be an officer in the future. But there's no formal promotional process or succession plan in place. So this is something the fire chief can look at with his staff. Next slide, please. So the other recommendation is that the Huron East Fire Department develops the following programs to ensure compliance with Ontario mandates. And I talked about cancer prevention, respiratory protection, and PTSD prevention. A lot of people forget that even though they're volunteer firefighters, they still go to very tragic and horrendous scenes. During my career, I was not only fire chief of a career department, but also fire chief of a volunteer department. And they go to the same accidents, the same things as the career firefighters go to. Next slide, please. So the operational recommendations basically come down to improving pre-planning initiatives within the fire department, developing a preventive maintenance program for the radio system, expansion of the present inspection and fire code enforcement program, training personnel to meet certification requirements. And I already talked about this, such as training officers, fire prevention officers, captains. So as you can see, all these operational recommendations really are staff involved time and can be done with very little cost. Next slide, please. So in essence, that's the conclusion of the presentation. I just wanted to go over that high level overview of some of the standards, some of the things that we did during the review, what the strategic recommendations are, the operational recommendations. But again, we want to thank council and staff and all the firefighters. And make no mistake about it, as I'm sure you're aware, you have a dedicated group of volunteers here that you know, they leave their families at 2 a.m. to respond to a call, things like that. So they're good people and they helped us a lot with their input also. So what are the next steps? The fire chief and staff prioritize the recommendations. So we have them listed in the document. We have them listed by timeline. And when I say timeline, that's an implementation, suggested implementation timeline. We put that in there so that council and the fire chief can say, all right, so if we look at all the short-term implementation, can we do all of this? Can we move something to a midterm? And so nothing's etched in stone. It's just how the fire chief and council want to work through all of these recommendations. The other thing is the cost. These are estimated costs. They can vary greatly. And as we all know that even the cost of fuel from one day to another goes up and down dramatically. So these are just basic estimated costs of what we're seeing in the market now for any of these recommendations. And last slide, please. So thank you very much for your time. Again, I would like to thank everyone who assisted in the development of the fire service review and the opportunity to come here and present this to council.
Well, before I go to council to see if they have any questions, can I just get a clarification? So very briefly, there was a discussion about Seaforth Fire Hall about what our future plans were going to be. And one of the suggestions was that we can possibly do some renovations and possibly do a little add-on. So if I can clarify your original remark, if we added any square footage to the building, the entire building has to be brought up to the new standard?
That's what I've been advised of, yes. So if you just do internal renovations, you don't change the outside structure at all, and then you can do those renovations. But as soon as you add on and change the face of the building, then it becomes nowadays, which now it must meet those post-disaster requirements.
Thank you. Councillor Chartrand?
So for that, like, to do offices or add washrooms with showers, that type of stuff. We're not changing the structure of the building. That would be all right.
Yeah, all, anything that's internal, so as long as you don't change that outside structure.
Any other questions, Councillor Newell?
Just a couple of points maybe to consider when we start doing the implementation. There were some staffing changes. One was the admin assistant and the other one was a fire prevention officer moving from part-time to full-time. There is a cost associated or identified for the admin assistant, but not for that fire prevention officer. So just something to keep in mind when we're doing our budgeting as we move forward. The exhaust extraction, I'm not sure if that's mandated yet. It's a great idea to have it done, but I was confused because it looks like recommendation 34 and 37 are the same, and I may just be reading that wrong. On our sheets, it's page 177 and 207. They just look like they're talking about the same thing, and I may just be wrong. I may have read it wrong.
If I could through you, your worship,
Yep.
Councillor, you're not wrong.
Okay.
That was an oversight.
Okay.
When I was going through the report again today, I seen that myself.
Okay.
So yes, I guess, it was, just.
So we're down to 47 recommendations.
Already got one up.
Yeah,
Done now.
that's good.
Yeah.
Yes, no, thank you very much. You're right.
Okay.
Any other comments on the report or questions? For Lyle? Seeing none? Thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much again. Good evening.
Our next delegation is the Public Sector Digest Asset Management Plan 2025. Marissa, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having me out today. My name is Marisa Benuelos Spencer, and I'm with PSD Citywide. Today, I'm presenting on your 2025 asset management plan. This plan was produced by my colleague, Arun Sharma. Unfortunately, due to some extenuating circumstances, he wasn't able to be here tonight, so I will be presenting on his behalf. In terms of the agenda for today, there's really 6 key things that we'll be discussing. We'll start off with some basic information, kind of addressing a fundamental question of what is asset management. From there, we'll talk about a regulation called Ontario Regulation 58817. That is the Ontario Municipal Asset Management legislation. We'll discuss what's required from it and where you are implementing that. From there, we'll get into the project. And so we'll begin by discussing kind of an overview, what was required, what were the timelines, what were the processes that were undertaken to complete this. And following that, we'll get into what I like to call the meat and potatoes, where we look at what were the findings, what was the selected proposed level of service, and what is the financial position resulting from this. And then we'll conclude with some takeaways and action items. Okay, so a burning question. What is asset management? If you could go to the next slide, asset management is really about understanding what assets you as a municipality own and how those assets help provide service to your constituents and the community. And when you think about, what's in your community, whether it's the building that we're standing in today, or when you walk out the street that you use to get here, assets are really an important part of the provision of service. Without assets, we wouldn't be able to provide a sound transportation network. We wouldn't be able to provide clean, safe drinking water, and we also wouldn't be able to provide the, recreation opportunities like a playground that you might take your children to. So when we talk about asset management at the most fundamental level, we're talking about how do we preserve the assets that we own to deliver services to the community. Asset management, beyond the question of, how do we preserve the assets, it's also about how do we coordinate the activity of our organization to realize the value from our assets. And when we talk about realizing value, there's three fundamental areas that we look at. The first is the cost. So what is this cost? Today and into the future. The second is the risk. So how much risk do we have in these assets? And the third is the performance. How are our assets performing? And so collectively, those three kind of areas of focus provide really foundational information within the context of asset management. Okay, so the regulation, you probably seen, you know, these words quite a few times. What is it and what's required from it? So this is a regulation that the province brought in with the first requirement due in 2019. That was for a strategic asset management policy. That's something the municipality has already completed. And that really is a public declaration of your commitment to asset management and identification of the key players within the municipality that will help deliver your asset management program. And an identification of kind of the framework that you as a municipality wish to deliver through asset management. The second key deadline within the regulation came up in 2022. This is an asset management plan for your core assets. Your core assets are defined by the OREG, and those would be your roads, your bridges, water, wastewater, and your stormwater assets. That regulation requires you to report out on your inventory. So that would be addressing questions like, what do we own? What is it worth? What condition is it in? As well as your current level of service. That is a reflection of how is that asset currently performing, or rather that asset group, and what is the cost to maintain that level of service. In 2024, the requirement was all of those same pieces of information, but the scope was expanded to all of your asset categories. So that would now include things like machinery and equipment, fleet assets, buildings, land improvements. It also required a review and an update of your strategic asset management policy. So all of those four, or rather the three kind of deadlines, the 2019, 2022, and 2024, the municipality has already completed before the 2025 project was initiated. And so the next requirement is the 2025 asset management plan. That's what today's focus is on. And that is looking more at what we call proposed levels of service. And a proposed level of service is essentially a target for how you want your assets to perform. And beyond that, it's understanding what is it going to cost and how are we going to fund that. Okay, so now that we've gone through kind of the fundamental questions of what is asset management, and we've addressed what is the regulation and what are the regulatory requirements, we'll get into this project. So what were the requirements of the project? Two objectives were identified. The first kind of being the primary is compliance with the regulations. So for 2025, that is looking at your proposed levels of service, reporting out what those are and what the costs associated with them are. And then the secondary objective, and a very important part of the achievement of the first, is the continued consolidation and refinement of your municipal asset data. So asset data is, you know, information on a road. How long is it? What material is it? What condition is it? And that those same pieces of information continue with your other assets. So as you can imagine, there's lots of detail that goes into that. And a lot of the analysis is predicated on that information. So there was quite a push to further that and enhance the quality of it. In terms of the timeline, this project was initiated late in 2023, and here we are, close of the second quarter, I should say, of 2025. That was the kind of entire duration. There was 4 key areas that were covered off. The first was the data refinement. So that's looking at, for every asset, what information do we have on the asset? Is that information accurate? If not, we'll update it, those kinds of steps. And you can imagine that question applied many, many times over. The second component was the public engagement. This was kind of the first quarter of January 2024. And then the third was a staff workshop where we kind of looked at information from staff, tried to obtain insights into their experience with the assets, and also applied our understanding from public engagement and the staff workshops to setting the proposed level of service. And then the fourth and the final stage was the draft process. So that's basically taking it all together, all of that information from stage one, data refinement, and stage 2 and 3 into the asset management plan. Okay, so how do we do that? So the first step is continuous improvement of the asset register. So I talked about at the onset how data is very fundamental to this. The assets within the ownership of the municipality are housed within a software system called Citywide. And so that involves a review of every asset to ensure that it has required fields, such as when was this asset constructed or acquired? How long do we think this asset is going to last? How much does it cost to replace this asset? What is the quantity of this asset? So, how long is the sidewalk? There was also data refinement, so that involves looking at the costing that was used, that involves looking at the life cycle strategy. And then a big part of it was also looking at your condition assessments for your assets. So that is what condition the asset is in. That information was updated within the registry. The second piece was the public engagement. This was completed in collaboration with the municipality of Huron East, as well as Linton Consulting. The intention behind this was to understand public sentiment around proposed levels of service, to identify priorities, so what maybe asset categories are considered more important to constituents, and then to take that information into consideration in the development of the proposed levels of service. The second step was the staff workshop. So as you can imagine, there's quite a number of staff that make this municipality run. They are experts in the assets that they own and manage. And so we worked with them to understand and kind of their experience with the assets to get some insights that could help inform the plan. And then through that, we were able to select the KPIs or the levels of service and also understand the financial picture. Okay, so with all of that background in mind, helping you understand what steps we're taking to get here, now we'll get into what is 2025 asset management plan telling us. As I noted at the onset, this is an update from your last asset management plan, which I understand was developed quite ahead of the 2024 deadline. So this is kind of a more reflective asset inventory. So if we go to the next slide, what this slide is telling us is the replacement cost by category. So we group our assets into categories. Those categories reflect kind of a function of assets. So we have the road network, for example, that would involve your roads. It would also involve your sidewalks, streetlights, things of that nature. Similarly, bridges and culverts would involve the bridges and the structural culverts within your municipality. So unsurprisingly, your road network is the highest valued asset category. That's followed by your bridges and culverts. That's quite common within a municipal asset inventory listing. And then it kind of goes down from there. So water and sanitary are fairly close in their valuation. Buildings is a fairly significant component as well, with vehicles, stormwater, and machinery and equipment taking up a smaller proportion. This next slide is representing the condition of your portfolio by replacement cost. So the green bar is representing the assets that are considered in very good condition. And here you see that about just under 30% of the assets are in good condition, and that is associated with the replacement cost of about 100 million. Good condition assets are a little bit less at 23% or approximately $80 million. And then almost exactly half are kind of fair or very poor condition. You'll see in a future slide where we got that condition information, a large percentage of it was based on assessed condition. We go to this graph is just a further breakdown of your condition. So You can see within each category, how does the condition of assets, what is the condition of assets rather? You can see for some categories, there's perhaps a little bit more very good condition than others. And that's just a more detailed view. This table here is representing by asset category, what percentage of assets weighted by replacement cost received an assessed condition. An assessed condition typically involves an expert in that asset category going out and reviewing the asset or using various tools and instruments to obtain insights into the condition of the asset. So, for example, your bridges and culverts, those are regulated to be inspected every 2 years through what's called a biannual bridge inspection. And that produces what's called an OSIM report. And so the information within the asset management plan reflects the condition information from that OSIM report. Whereas another category in this case might have been an internal assessment, which would involve staff going out and reviewing the asset, appending a condition to it, and then updating the register to reflect. So overall, about 92% of all assets did receive an assessed condition. Okay, so proposed levels of service is how you want your assets to perform, considering things like the cost and the risk and the feasibility. If we go to the next slide, this talks about the legislative requirements. So the legislation requires that you identify the proposed level of service metric and report out on it over a period of 10 years. It also requires that within that, you explain why the proposed level of service is appropriate. And that there's consideration for things like what's the risk associated with that proposed level of service? How is it different from your current level of service? Is the proposed level of service achievable and affordable? Within the asset management plan, that's reported out over 10 years, which is what the legislation requirement is. And then there's updated lifecycle management strategies, which is basically what you do to your assets and when, and financial strategies to support those proposed levels of service, as well as an overview of any growth assumptions and how that is considered within that. So in terms of the process, we look at what's the current condition of the asset portfolio. We analyze what is the forecasted capital requirement. So capital requirement is an investment to your asset over the next 10 years. We make updates to the asset management registry, that's called citywide. And from that outputs what the projected condition is, based on those parameters, what the projected condition and the risk and the cost associated with that is. So this chart and the slides that follow overview by asset category, what is the level of service metric, what is the current metric, and what is the proposed metric. On the far right, it's showing what's the expected trend over that 10-year period. So if the arrow goes both ways, that's just indicating it's more or less maintaining it. Up is increasing, down is decreasing. So what the main takeaway here that you'll see is that for your roads, the expected trend is that they would increase in service. The PCI represents the pavement condition index. So currently it's about 52. The proposed level of service is to improve it to a good condition. The average risk rating would remain what it is. And then if we go down by categories, you'll see bridges and culverts. Really, it's just maintaining the existing condition as it shows on screen. If we go to the next slide, excuse me, this is for your other asset categories. So again, water network, you'll see that, it's just maintaining. So it's currently in fair. The projected proposed level of service is fair. You will notice that the sanitary sewer has a negative. And that's simply because that's just kind of the natural degradation of assets over that 10-year period. So if you imagine your own home, you wouldn't prematurely replace your furnace just because it's in 50% condition if you think it'll last another 5 years. And so that's not necessarily a reflection of how you operate your furnace. It's just simply the decision to run your assets for their lifespan. Your buildings, the municipality has an intent to improve the AOTA compliance. That's an accessibility compliance standard in Ontario, so that is why that one's increasing. Otherwise, you'll see that they are maintaining. Okay, so this section looks at the financial outlook. This table is looking at what is the average annual requirement. The average annual requirement represents on an average annual basis how much capital investment that category is forecasted to need. The table then outlines the sustainable revenue sources that could fund. So you'll see taxes as a column, and then taxes to reserve and other sustainable revenue sources. That gives you a total available and the average annual requirement. So that's the need, less the total available. It represents the deficit for that category. So overall, for your tax funded assets, this would be everything excluding your water and wastewater. The average annual requirement is about 6.5 million. The total available is about just over 4 million. That gives you a deficit of about 2.3. The chart to the right of that shows by asset category what tax change would be required to receive full funding. You'll see that varies a little bit by asset category. On an overall basis, it's about 23%. You can go to the next slide. Similarly, this table looks at the financial outlook for your rate funded assets. Again, your rate funded would be your water and your wastewater assets. So that's showing an average annual requirement of about 2.2, less the funds available of about 1.2, gives you a deficit of just under $1 million. So this is detailed within the asset management plan, which I understand has been provided as part of this presentation. And basically from that, there's a series of recommendations which outline how can that funding gap be resolved to meet that proposed level of service. And so for your tax funded assets, that would require an average annual tax change to fund that proposed level of service. We suggest phasing it in over a period of 15 years. And then for your rate funded and your your water and your sanitary assets, there are respective rates for those, and those are funded over a period of 20 years. Okay, so what are some key takeaways and action items? So one relates to data. So as you can probably understand from what you've seen so far, good data is very important to asset management. It is what a lot of the analysis is predicated upon. And so there was a significant effort from staff to review that, update it, and ensure that it's as accurate as possible. That's something that is an ongoing effort because, as you can imagine, your assets change. You might sell a vehicle, you might buy a new vehicle, you might construct a new road, you might do a rehab on a road, and that needs to be reflected in your database. So as is a constant in asset management, good data is important. The second is start small, then expand. So some municipalities will have quite a few metrics. We've opted to keep them to a more manageable scale. So the recommendation is start with what you have, measure it, report out on it. And if it's deemed of value and ability, then you could consider expanding your net metrics. The proposed level of service, they are projected in this plan for a period of 10 years. That's what's required in the legislation. The legislation does require in 5 years that you review and you update your asset management plan. So that would require an update at that time. Another key recommendation is that as you procure studies, whether that's another bridge study through your OSIMs or perhaps a road need study, it's important to reflect that information in the database. and to integrate that into your practices. And then the third is that these targets are realistic, they are financially, you know, sustainable in terms of the revenue sources that we've looked at for the period of 10 years. So from that presentation, we kind of identify a key recommendation, and so that is that as per the regulation, section 8, that the council approve by resolution the asset management plan, that the council authorize staff to post the asset management plan on the municipal website, which is also a requirement of the legislation. That concludes the presentation. And if there are questions, I'm happy to address those.
Well, maybe. And Marissa, I'm not sure if you can give me some answers or Brad can give me some answers, but so as far as standards go, the only one that I've been real familiar with over the last decade is minimum maintenance standards for roads.
Yeah.
That's been a common thing.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we strive for is we put in our documents, we'll meet the minimum.
Mhm.
We would like to always do better, but we realize we have an obligation to meet the minimum. Things can happen and there may be instances where you can't, but I'm more concerned about when you're talking, you know, a 24% tax increase basically to cover the cost of what we need to do. That's an outrageous number that we may have the authority to raise the money. Well, we, one, don't have the backbone and the public don't have the funds to be able to just throw that money at the municipality. What happens if what we consider to be our minimum standard for these different categories doesn't satisfy the province or the courts or somebody else down the road?
So one thing just to clarify, the recommendation is to increase taxes by 1.5%. That percentage that you referred to earlier is if you were to just
Throw it all in.
overnight
Yep.
meet your averaging requirement. So we do recognize that that is not feasible. I don't think I need to go into detail as to why. I think we
Right,
have a
yeah.
well-educated audience here. And so recognizing that, the recommendation is, you know, increase it gradually over time. In terms of the minimum maintenance standards that you're referring to, those are more operational in nature in reference to things like patrols, snow removal, things of that nature. So I'm not in the position to, you know, comment on what the repercussions of not meeting the minimum maintenance standards are. Within the asset management plan are level of service metrics, so that's the things like condition that you saw earlier in the graph. Those relate to the condition of your assets. The condition of a road, for example, would typically be assessed through what's called a roads need study, where you would go out and you would attest the surface for roughness and things of that nature.
The report that you showed there that showed 1/3 of all of our assets are either poor or very poor.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, how does that compare to other municipalities that your firm has done this type of work for? Without
That's
naming
not
names.
that, yeah, I can't name names. In terms of the general trend, that's not atypical. If you look at just a simple metric of what is the percentage being funded versus the need, it's about half. Municipalities are generally spending about half of what they need to spend on it. So from that, you can deduce that there's probably a fair amount of assets that aren't in good shape. Now, it's also helpful to remember that sometimes assets may be considered not in good shape because they're, you know, an old keyboard. But that keyboard is still functional in terms of its ability to deliver what it needs to do. So it's also helpful to understand what assets specifically are in poor condition and what is the implication if that asset fails. And that, when we look at that, we would look at what we call risk, where we actually quantify the risk of failure by asset. And that would kind of provide insight into, is this a keyboard failing or is this my one fire truck failing?
Counselor Chartrand.
Yeah, and I guess this to Brad, so. You've already started us off, Brad, when we do our new budgeting. We automatically put, I think it was 2.5%.
Well,
2.1.
Is it 2.1?
the 2012 asset management plan recommended your 2.1.
Right.
The 2022 asset management plan recommended 4.2. And so over the last 4 years, if I can say this, and Denise can confirm it, we've invested enough in our reserves that, in fact, actually, we've done a good job.
Right,
So now we've gone from 4.2 to 1.5.
right.
So
And that's the point that I was making, is that we're already doing what this plan is suggesting
Yeah.
with our reserves and the money. We're already doing that now. Right,
We started in the last 4 years.
Right.
We've done a good job in terms of getting the right dollars available to be able to fund some of these capital projects and using some of the funding from the province in terms of OCIF. And I call it so-called the gas tax, but the CCEF, I think it is. Using those dollars wisely in terms of being invest. So, you know, even when you look at some of those assets there in terms of, you know, the good, the very good, good and the fair, you know, you've done a lot of investment. So you've moved your, you know, if you look at a comparison as to where you were probably back in 2022, you'll see that you've shifted things probably in the positive fashion. Sure, some of your assets have started to deteriorate and gone into the poor or fair condition. But you've also been investing and improving them, so you're keeping a good balance. I think it's a success story, the fact that you're only looking at 1.5%. I think Deputy Mayor spoke that the county's looking at, I think, was it 2.9, I think they said?
So, yeah.
2.9 is what theirs is looking at in terms of what they have to invest just to sustain their capital.
well, that's why I brought it up, because it's not doom and gloom for us. We're already doing it, and we're kind of ahead of the curve. I think
We're in good shape, and I would think, you know, and with all due respect to the mayor's comments, sounds like a lot when you do it like that as a 20% over 20 years. But when you consider the fact that we always increase tax, and you have to always generally increase taxes
Right,
each year, adding an extra 1.5% to what we've created, we're, you know, in good shape. So it makes it a little bit more tolerable on an annual basis
right.
to create that revenue sustaining assets you have.
And my last question is, who in staff here handles our asset management plan? Updates the data when an old machine goes and a new one comes in?
Sure.
Who's in charge of that?
So there's a team actually. So there was a team assembled as part of this asset management process. I wasn't part of that team. But our Director of Public Works, our Director of Community Service, our Director of Finance, as well as our Financial Analyst Deputy Treasurer. So most of the information is, you know, gathered, collected. I would say probably, and correct me if I'm wrong, Denise, but I believe our Deputy Treasurer would be the person that would make sure that the asset inventory is being updated. So as we replace an asset, so for example, Sawmill Road's being paved today, that documentation will be updated in the asset management plan to reflect that that's moved from whatever it was, let's say a fair condition to a good condition or very good, whatever the status would be.
That's good.
And then doing it as she said, that, you know, doing those constant updates to refine that data more and more every time. And so, you know, we've gone from basically having those core assets in there to expand it to include a broader inventory. So buildings are more incorporated into it. We're starting to carry things like our technical equipment, our computers, machinery being inventory, things like that. So we're building the asset management plan, and we're building and making it more refined, which makes it more accurate and more representative.
I just want to make sure there's somebody actually in charge of it, so that it's constantly updated all the time.
Yeah, there might be, you know, somewhere down the road, you know, as we go along here, and depending upon what the province does, there might be some day where you might have to actually have somebody physically on staff that just manages your asset management plan. But so far, we'd be able to manage it with the staff resources we currently have.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Jeff?
I was reviewing the notes and I see that percentage of fair or better condition drastically increased for our buildings from 2022 to 2025. And the jump was 34% to 100%. So I'm wondering, what have we done in the last 3 years, or is that just a different way that we've measured it, why that number would be so?
Certainly, question there.
I would have to investigate that a little bit, as I wasn't the project lead, I don't know that detail intimately. But we do have record of every asset, and we have a record of the logs, so we know exactly what was changed when, even down to who. So that is something we can investigate and get back to you. My suspicion is it may have been a product of actually having a cess condition as opposed to age.
Okay.
And yeah, we can confirm that. We had the consultant, I think, did a condition assessment, so. Between the two asset management things.
Great, thanks.
Actually, one thing that probably added to that was one of the smartest moves this council ever made, hiring our own handyman. We've got someone on staff every day that when we've got small jobs, instead of going through council to do an RFP and this and that, get people in, we've got someone here every day of the week, constantly repairing and updating stuff. And that was a smart move by this council. Huge cost saving. Any other questions? Marissa, thank you very much for your presentation.
Sounds good.
Thank you for having me.
The next item we have on our delegations is the Dill Municipal Drain. And Bill Dietrich. Welcome, Bill.
Thank you. Okay, I guess our drawing is up on the screen there right now. This is a plan that was attached to our report. So I'll start with Mayor McCollum, members of council, any landowners present on this project. This will be my presentation on the repairs and improvements to Dill Municipal Drain. And I'll start with a little bit of I'll make this fairly quick. A little background information. This project was initiated under section 78 of the Drainage Act. Our firm was appointed to make some repairs and improvements to the existing draining system. The little bit of history on the drain. We researched all this before we had the on-site meeting. And the most current improvements to the Dill drain date back to 1974 and then at a later date in 83. But 1974 was some major improvements were done to the drain. This was a report prepared by E.H. Uderstadt Incorporated. And the open drain was cleaned out in its entirety. It's approximately 12,000 feet in length at that time. So the drain was cleaned out right from the outlet in Silver Creek, which is in lot 9 of concession 2. It's off this plan here in the Tucker Smith ward. It was cleaned out right to the upper end into the property line between lots 2 and 3 of concession 1 HRS. Also in that report, the open portion of the drain was enclosed in lots 1 and 2 of concession 1. This included installation of approximately 2,515 feet of 16-inch to 21-inch diameter tile. And this is from the open ditch outlet right up to Highway 8. And then in 1983, a report submitted by R.J. Burnside and Associates added 2 tile branches to the drain. They were both installed on the upstream side in McKillop Ward in the east part of lot 16, concession 1. Branch B consisted of approximately 200 meters of 16-inch pipe, and branch C was 97 meters of 6-inch diameter tile. And also the drain then was extended to the north side of the highway under that report by means of installing a 400 millimeter pipe under Highway 8. So that's a bit of background information. We had, after the onset meeting, we did the survey. We had an information meeting to review our plans and our proposal for the improvements. And you'll see in the report, there's 3 parts of the project where we're going to be making improvements. I'll start off the first part of the project is the main drain closed. And the main drain closed, drains approximately 445 acres of land. And what we're proposing here is to update or upgrade the existing tile draining system. And the existing drain that was installed in 74 will be paralleled with a new municipal tile drain. The new drain will consist of 751 meters of 675 millimeter to 750 millimeter tile. 27-inch to 30-inch diameter pipe will be paralleling the existing system. The drains will be cross-connected, and the drain will be installed up to the south side of the highway. We're also proposing to provide a new outlet to all the lands on the upstream side of the highway with a new 750 millimeter pipe that'll be jacked aboard under Highway 8. This will bring the drainage system, existing tile system, up to today's standards. The old drains back in the 70s, a lot of them were installed using a 1/2-inch drainage coefficient. We're finding today that it's just that system isn't adequate for the drainage that has gone on in this watershed, and for to provide outlet for where you have surface inlets on the drainage system. So this new system is going to probably will increase the capacity about 350%, or 3.5 times the existing system that's there. Total estimated cost for doing this is $334,800. The breakdown of the costs are in the report and the assessment and the assessment of costs. That estimate includes the construction costs, the allowances that will be provided to the landowners for right of way and damages to lands and crops, and it includes all the township's administration costs. The second part of the project, the municipality has had a request to enclose the open portion of the drain in the north part of lot 3 of concession 1. And this is on the Haney farm. So what we're proposing there, we're going to relocate approximately the lower end of the open ditch along the railroad, and then there'll be a new municipal tile drain to connect up to the existing tile system installed on the Haney farm, which will consist of about 306 meters of 900 millimeter diameter pipe. Total estimated cost for this work is $153,000. And the third part of the project is this open ditch that will be constructed. So part of the open ditch is being relocated. It's approximately 125 meters open channel will be constructed upstream of the railroad right away. And then we also have a recommendation in the report, and this can be done under maintenance. You have an existing bylaw. In the future, the open portion of the ditch downstream of the Godrich Extra Railway, we're recommending that be cleaned out under the maintenance program. So we've estimated the open work on this project to cost $62,000. So we had everything together. This is all the improvements that are being recommended under this report. There's various approvals that have been required to get, and this is why this project has taken a little longer than normal municipal drain projects. We have to get approval from the Conservation Authority, DFO, and the MTO. The Asolo Bayfield, we submitted our application to them, and they provided they had an aquatic biologist do a report, a review of the existing drain. That was done by Carrie Jean. That report was then submitted to us in the municipality, and from that was forwarded to Fisheries and Oceans. And as a result, it required after that, it required an authorization. So that authorization, it takes time. It's now complete. I believe the municipality now has and DFO has received the financial guarantee, which is the line of credit, allows the project to proceed. So we're still waiting on that, but as far as I know, it's everything's all the offsetting measures that are included in this report satisfy the DFO requirements to do the work on the drain. And the last permit, we've applied to the Ministry of Transportation for an encroachment permit, which will allow the municipality to put the new crossing under Highway. So once all those are in place, we're good to go here. So this is my report, and this is what we're proposing to do. And these are the improvements that will be made to the Bill municipal drain, assuming the municipality accepts this report. Some of the next steps on that project after tonight, if the report is adopted by council, there'll be a provisional bylaw passed, and a notice will be sent out for the quarter revision. So at this point in time, I'll take a break, and if there's any questions from council or any members from the audience there that are property owners on the drain, I'll try to answer those questions.
Any questions of council this time? Any questions from the gallery on this drain? I had one, and Brad, maybe you're the right one to answer it. It's the first time that I see a big chunk of, no, I'm not doing the berry thing. The first time that I saw the provinces, got a big chunk of cost on, one of our municipal drain. Do they pay that as a one lump sum, or does it become a part of tile drainage loan, or how does that work?
Question I'm not gonna be prepared to answer, but I can look to my treasurer or I can look to my clerk, maybe they know. I'm guaranteeing that, but
I haven't dealt with it myself either, but I'm assuming they pay it like a landowner would.
One lump sum?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. There'll be one, as far as I know, once the project is completed,
Yeah.
the actual cost, the Ministry of Transportation, and those costs are separated in our report.
Mhm.
They'll be assessed, majority of their assessment, you'll see here is for the special assessment under section 26 of the act. So those actual increased costs will be assessed back to the Ministry of Transportation, and it's a one lump, as far as I know, it's an assessment bill that goes out at the end, and it'll be collected, like any other assessment on the drain. Biggest part of the cost, it seems to be with, getting across the highway today is getting, permits. And, they do require now geotechnical engineering reports. I mean, you might want to take an hour to put that pipe underneath the road if everything goes well. But it takes months to get these permits. And all those costs that we're getting those permits are accessible under the act back to the MTO, unfortunately. But some of it's self-inflicted.
So.
Maybe all-
We're charging them for charging us.
Exactly.
That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, that's the bottom line.
Okay, no other questions of council this time? Oh, Deputy Mayor.
Just a quick one, just going through each bill.
Yeah.
Did you say the Department of Fisheries were involved in this too?
Absolutely.
And if they were, did they have a time frame when work can be done on it?
Yeah, it'll be, they'll have a restriction. We can't do any in-water works, between, I think it's in the report. It'll be in their final permit when they send it to us. July the 15th, right through till usually, can't work in the ditch until we or do any improvements or changes till July the 15th, but usually we work right up until March.
Okay.
If it was a cold water stream, sometimes they want you out of there in September, October. Timing windows are really, this is a warm water. There's, they defined it as class C, so it's permanent flowing, but it's warm water. Bait fish, maybe with might be in it.
Thank you. Any other questions of council? Seeing none, thank you very much, Bill.
Yeah.
I need a mover and a seconder to accept the engineer's report, moved by Councillor Stepler, seconded by the deputy mayor. That the council of the municipality of Huron East accept the engineer's report on the Dill Municipal Drain and designate it as bylaw 52 of 2025. And that the quarter revision be set for August 12, 2025 at 5 p.m. And that Alvin McClellan, Ray Chartrand, and Alex Foster as the West Perth representative be appointed as member with Alvin McClellan acting as chair. All those in favor? And motion goes to. Next, public meeting, zoning bylaw amendment Z01 of 2025. So I need a mover and a seconder to adjourn regular meeting to go into a public meeting, moved by Councillor Chartrand, second by Councillor Dalton. That the council of the municipality of Huron East adjourn the regular meeting of council at 7:13 p.m. to go into a public meeting to discuss the following. And that would be zoning bylaw amendment Z01 of 2025. All those in favor? Motion carries. Need another motion here. Yes, can I get a mover and a seconder for the agenda for the public meeting, moved by Councillor Morrison, second by Councillor Wilby. That the agenda for the public meeting dated June 24th, 2025 be adopted as circulated. All those in favor? And motion carries. Is there any declaration of pecuniary interest for this portion of the meeting? Seeing none, then I turn it over to Shay. Welcome.
So just a brief presentation on Z01 in 2025. So the property, that the zoning amendment applies to is part of block 35, plan 596, part C and 9 of the plan in Brussels ward, right in Brussels. Owner is David Schlump and the applicant was Ryan Bagnall from Monty Fritz Miller Phillips. So just a picture of the subject lands here. So we're located in the Brussels municipal subdivision in Brussels, just behind the arena. Property is on the west side of Brian's Drive and consists of lots 8 and 9. So the owner has purchased these 2 lots from the municipality and had them merge into one parcel upon purchase. The intent is to build 2 semi-detached buildings, essentially with 1 building on each lot. The purpose of the zoning bylaw here today is to apply a special R1 zone, which would permit more than 1 main building on the lot. And the special zone would also have the effect of recognizing that each unit is permitted to contain an attached ARU, so basement unit, for a total of up to 8 units on the now merged property. Next slide, please. So I've just got a site plan here to show the proposed building footprints and setbacks. So both buildings comply with all of the provisions of the R1 zone, including yard setbacks, lot coverage, parking, and no further relief from the bylaws being requested. And then here I've just got a front elevation of the proposed building. Both buildings will look pretty much the same. And the buildings will be of a similar design and nature to the existing dwellings that are going up in this subdivision, so nothing will look much different than the kind of established neighborhood here. So the owner is intending to rent out the units, and part of the reasoning for the zoning amendment is to be able to access certain funding opportunities for rental units. So if all of the properties are located on one property, they can now access these funding opportunities. The development is not proposed to be of a different density or design than what's already otherwise permitted. And the proposal is supported by both the county and Huron East official plans, which encourages a mix of housing forms for residential growth, including a variety of different types of housing options, including rental and freehold options. So no concerns were raised by staff or other agencies. We did have one comment from a neighboring landowner who noted some concerns more generally with the parking issues experienced in this subdivision. Noticed it's kind of been due to the amount of multi-unit dwellings that have been the trend in this neighborhood. The neighbor did note that he has no formal objection to the requested zoning amendment, just a more general comment. So staff is aware of this issue and they're working to try to come up with a solution. At least in the long term, so we'll be working on seeing what can be done about the parking in the subdivision. And next slide. So as a result of the review I mentioned, the zoning amendment bylaw amendment is recommended to be approved and the zoning bylaw amendment passed. Any questions on that?
Any comments or questions from council at this time? Councillor Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To shave, please. I realize our property law says that new builds, you only have to have 1 parking spot, but this is, to me, there's gonna be 8 units there, there's gonna be 16 vehicles potentially. So what can be done to mediate that? There's no public transit, there's not a lot of jobs in Brussels, unfortunately, so the people that are living in those 8 units are leaving town. So they have to have cars, they have to have parking. Are we gonna gravel the backyard or are we gonna gravel the front yard? It's gonna be a huge headache for the neighbors on either side. Can something be done with Mr. Stump on this project, please?
Yeah, thank you. So for this particular proposal, the site plan that the applicant provided shows the minimum parking requirements just to meet the zoning provisions. They do have potential plans to incorporate more parking spaces on the site with some creative solutions that could accommodate more than 1 vehicle per unit. That's kind of the onus is on the property developer to, if they want to do that. but they are meeting the requirement of one space per unit. Long term, there may be potential for looking at if the subdivision is expanded to the south, maybe adding some parking spaces there that can be rented out, kind of overflow parking. Maybe other potential rental options using the arena parking lot in off peak hours. We don't have a solution at this time, but it's kind of on our radar, and we'll see if there's something that will work for the long run.
And you'll let us know if you come up with some great plan, right?
We'll keep you updated.
Thank you, Sherry.
Any other questions of council, Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Shay, or more or less just a general comment, talking to the David that's built one, proposing this here, he did say he went to a two-story building, I think, to kind of give himself an option for more parking out front, I think, but just wanted to zero in on that. So we can't demand any more than one per, right?
That's correct, yeah, so the minimum in the bylaws is one per unit. We encourage developers to think about the needs of your tenants, if you're gonna be selling it or renting it, then probably one might be wise, but the minimum is one.
That's what, actually David sort of mentioned that too. He said maybe your niece should look at perhaps one of the lots that we still have to sell and actually make it into parking. So which I thought was, and that's maybe something they're considering now. Or it's an option just to give some more room. I mean, I've always been concerned about drive, just one road to the west there, going down to the arena, and sometimes in the winter time and even summertime. It's very, very difficult to pass down through there, you know, and I'm thinking if there ever was an emergency, and so then just multiply that to. Then here in Brian's Drive and in that subdivision itself, so I think it's a serious problem, and I think. Can't just keep, you know, covering our eyes, we really have to come up with something here, so we do. I know it's not a problem that we created, but the province probably has helped us a lot as well along there, so. Just, I don't want it to get lost, that's all, so.
Yeah. We'll keep it on our radar and see if there is a solution that. We'll kind of work to address this. At least encouraging. Future developments to keep that in mind, but that's kind of been a tricky point with the existing development to.
There is another side to the same issue. My daughter lives in a small development, well, it's not a small development, but it's basically a neighborhood like this with mixed housing in Waterdale. It's fairly new, it's only a few years old. And during the summer, you barely got one lane because vehicles are parked on both sides of the road. But I can tell you this, nobody drives more than 25 kilometers an hour. If the kid runs out on the street because every house is right up to the edge. Chances are there's not gonna be a fatality because they're allowed to park on the streets during the summer. And I don't know where those people go in the winter because they're not allowed to be on the street, just like we're not in here in East. And they're not. If we go there overnight, there's not a single vehicle parked on the street overnight. And it's literally bumper to bumper the entire length of the streets during the summer. So I'm not sure where it goes, but I do know that some engineers plan on that as a calming effect for traffic. It's a safety qualifier for the public. I will be getting to comments from the public.
Sorry, I just didn't know when I was supposed to
No,
go, that's
no.
all, so just give me a word,
This is just the council portion.
sorry.
Go ahead, Councillor Schachter.
Yeah, right, to Brad, is there any, in this area or around there, do we have any road allowances or municipal land? What do you call that, unusable or whatever, that we could look at? Making parking lot?
Not in that particular area, other than the land you have that encompass the Brussels Community Center. And that,
I know sometimes there's road allowance or road allowances.
not in that particular area, no, because it's somewhat newer for the most part.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
It's certainly if something council wants to look into, I don't know what you could charge and feasibly expect people to pay to have off-site parking. If it's relatively close, but it's not uncommon in the city to be paying $150 a month just for a parking spot in the building that you're already renting. And people do it. And people will rent their neighbor's parking spot if their neighbor doesn't have a car. So they are worth something. Councilor McGrath.
This sounds reasonable, one parking spot per building, however. Should Huron East, you have 8 units there, and Huron East say no parking on the street. Maybe not this council, maybe some other council. That doesn't bode well for the gentleman that owns the building. And that would be a concern I have, because you're putting up a building worth a fair few dollars, and now, not everybody walks, so I've got a car and I wanna live in the lower end of this place, but the laneway's full. And Huron East has that sign, no parking on the street, even if it's in the winter time. Counselor, deputy mayor there with an extra lot is one thing, but I mean, that's something the gentleman would have to buy the lot for the parking, if you know what I mean. So I think it should be addressed sooner than later, because I can see it coming back rearing its ugly head pretty quick.
We're trying to serve two masters.
Yeah.
The problem is we're trying to intensify so that we get more people without using up more acreage of land.
I get that.
And along with that meant not 2 parking spots guaranteed for every household, but 1 for every household. And that became basically a province-wide initiative.
Yeah, but the problem doesn't take things out either.
Nice.
Maybe each unit should come with a smart car, they could put 2 or 3 in the lane. That's just my concern, is that they're looking back to rear its ugly head.
Right,
However,
I can't argue the point that it won't be an issue down the road, but that doesn't mean that, with a little thought over the next few years, that, there won't be a solution figured out that can work for the neighborhoods.
just means she's got a big headache on her hands.
Are there any other questions from, council this time? Okay, at this point, I go to members of the public, if they would like to comment. Are you the applicant?
No, I am not.
Okay, then go ahead.
So my name is Liz Hickling and I actually live on Bryan's Drive. I moved in and built in November. I've been in Brussels. I call myself an import. I've been here 19 years. Love my community. I'm glad that people in the city move their vehicles in the winter. That is not the case in this neighborhood. I'm really telling you, parking is a severe issue right now that we have on one side. Right now, I should have taken a picture with my cell phone. There are 4 cars on one side, 4 cars on the other side, just for the 8plex that's there right now. In the winter time, they were totally backed up on the streets. There was parking tickets being given out and to try to clear it. My concern is not only the parking, it's emergency vehicles getting back and forth through that area, especially at this time of year. The other thing I think we need to consider that we're not thinking about maybe is the fact that rent is so high right now in some of these places. There's multiple families living in one unit. I have no issue with having housing. I think that's an equitable right for every single person. My issue is literally there sometimes are up to, and I'm not exaggerating, with people parking in that 8plex or 6plex or whatever it is right now. So the yards are completely full and it's all the way down the street on both sides. My fear is that if we continue to allow that parking, that these multiple family homes, I have no issues with like the original, the one on each side. That's no problem to me because I feel like that's reasonable. But allowing 8 units or 4 units, you do not have enough space for parking. You just don't. And unless Huron East is willing to give up one of the lots that they have there and putting in a public parking lot for people, which I'm totally for as well. As I say, I'm not against intensifying housing. I recognize how important housing is. That's not my issue. My issue is it's a safety concern. It's a complete pain for people trying to get up and down that road. You can't some days can't get up and down the road because of the amount of vehicles. And I'm asking that you would please, at least delay this until council has a solution for parking in the area. I don't wanna say that people, and I don't think an adequate solution is to have people park at the arena. Because at the arena in the wintertime, thankfully, it's very busy there. We just did a beautiful expansion in Brussels on our arena. It is used. And let's be honest, a lot of people don't wanna park there in the winter and walk to their house. So they're gonna park anyway. So again, it's not because of, it's not because of the amount of people. It's not because I want everything to be a certain way. It is totally unsustainable for parking. And I really caution. I caution this approval without further study as where these cars are going to go. That's what I want to say. Thank you.
Any other comments from members of the gallery? Don't see any others. Any comments or questions from the applicant? The applicant is not available. Okay. And at this point, if there's nothing for anybody to add, I need a motion to public meeting for zoning bylaw amendment be closed at. Time will be 7:31. Now we'll move in a second. Please. Moved by Councilor Chartrand, second by Deputy Mayor. All those in favor?
Just a question.
Go ahead, Larry.
So really, this property is compliant right through the bar. Right now, it's really nothing we really can say that they can't go ahead.
Yeah,
Right.
that's right. It meets all of the zoning provisions that would be permitted otherwise, so if you didn't merge the properties together. That's what that would be.
I guess my concern is, and I know that I've expressed it before, is, as the lady has says. The ugly head has come right now. It's right there now, it's not. And add another 8-plex on there, so you got 4 or 6-plex with that problem, now you put an 8-plex on beside it. I realize we likely can't turn it down because it complies with everything that they say it complies with, but it's gonna come back to this council to do something, and it could mean giving up a lot for free or something, but every point she made is right on. I mean, I wouldn't park my car at the green and walk way across, go home. Like this, it doesn't make sense, but that's my personal opinion, so.
I think there is something this council can do about it, but we've already passed the motion, so I don't want to enter into another discussion at this point. But can we put this on the next agenda to have a discussion about this?
We actually haven't passed the motion on the actual amendment, because that's coming next.
So that's coming
So
next,
this
okay.
is just to adjourn the public meeting.
Oh,
Now we'll
okay,
go into the actual discussion of the application once we,
okay, so we can discuss it now?
as soon as we get the motion carried, that we adjourn the. public
Oh,
meeting.
I did call a vote, Nick, here. Yeah, sorry.
So yes, now we can, the next item on the agenda would be that recommendation for the zoning amendment.
Okay, so Councillor Stecker.
Yeah, can we, I'm just asking direct staff to go back and look at what proper location to put one of the lots into a parking facility?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that, whether we use one of those lots or where we put one on right on the end where the expansion for the next phase would have been anyways. And it shouldn't be for free. Bottom line is, we're gonna put a lot up. The municipality should mark out the actual locations. You have a number for that. And if you're on the street, the cost of the parking ticket fine should be equal to a whole month's rent for the space for the parking. That's exactly what it should be. The bottom line is, we don't even want to be out there having to ticket people. Because if there's a safety issue in vehicles or emergency vehicles can't get up and down the road. The reason you're putting the fines there is to make sure that people aren't doing it. It's not that we're trying to make money off the fine. Now, if we're gonna give up a lot so that everybody in the neighborhood that wants to move in, if you're gonna have 8 vehicles when there isn't room for 8 vehicles. Fine, you still have to have another spot to park. We'll provide it, but you will have to pay for a spot.
I'd just like to ask staff to see where the proper location, where the thoughts, and then come back to us with a
Yeah.
recommendation, because. Honestly, I don't believe the people that were in there should have to pay an extra spot for it. I don't, I think that's just part and parcel of having the subdivision there, and it's being a good host and a good municipality. Did we take it into consideration? No. But we also didn't start this subdivision with fourplexes, sixplexes and eightplexes. We've had increased traffic flow by, 2 and 3 and 4 cars, so. I'd love to see staff find out if there's a viable space to create a public parking spot area. And then come back to say how many spots and what the cost would be, and then. Ourselves, it's a book item, but I agree, it's something that's out of revenue, so. Totally agree.
Go ahead, Larry.
If you build an apartment building, I realize this is just rental units as a whole, but if you build an apartment unit with 14 apartments in it, you need 14 parking spaces minimum. That's just the rules. Okay? And then you go up to another 8.5 a car. But like, my concern now is, we have a lady here who has seen this firsthand, who lived there, sees it on a daily basis. That's my concern. It's almost too late to shut the gate when the horse is long gone. You should try and correct the problem now, but that's.
I disagree with the fact that it's too late. The bottom line is, we have a rule that states how many parking spaces. So we follow those rules.
Yes.
If you have more vehicles at that property, it doesn't mean that you can leave them on the street. No, you can't. There are rules against leaving them on the street. And if we need to put more things in place, if in fact, when they're parking on both sides of the street during the day, it is a problem for emergency vehicles, council has the authority to say, no parking on one side, put the signs up. It's a safety issue for the community. We can do that, then you can only park on one side, at least you've got more access for vehicles moving up and down the road. And if you want to put in a parking lot that you rent spaces out, that's fine, but the person that's building the home that could have either 8 or technically 16 vehicles showing up there, then they need to explain to the people that are renting the house. You can't park them all right up in front of the house, it's not allowed. Here's the parking lot down here, here's what it costs you per month per spot. But that is the solution.
The way I'm reading this is, each building that basically has to have, it's not the units, the building has to supply one parking spot, or they have to have 4 per unit.
Or one per unit.
One per unit, so 4 for each side.
Yeah.
They have to provide 8 parking spots,
This development, yeah, well, it would be 8 parking spots.
but they're allowed to overflow, so be compliant, each one.
Yeah, 1 space per unit.
Or the drawing, you don't see where you're gonna park them, but that's.
Okay.
That's a sure. So I guess technically they almost have 2 spots because one in the garage, one in the driveway, right?
So they can use the garage as a parking space, that would not meet their
Right,
one
but
requirement.
the requirement is the 1 space in the driveway.
Yeah, in the driveway,
So we've provided 8 of those per the bylaw.
that's correct, yeah.
And
If there
then,
is a
and then on top of that, they have a garage, according to the pictures, there's a garage here.
Not sure most vehicles will fit in those garages these days, if you can get out, that's not my problem,
But I guess at this point in time, this particular application meets all the criteria, whether we find additional parking in the future. It's separate from this right now.
Councillor Fisher?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I ranted about this several years ago and it's coming back. I don't mind saying I did. But can't fight the province. We're handcuffed. If we put in a municipal parking lot, it will just be another can of worms for us to deal with in that neighborhood. I think we have to go to the building owners and somehow pressure them to provide more parking. And your idea about having parking on one side of the road should be done tomorrow, if not sooner. But having a municipal parking lot in that neighborhood, I think that's a big can of worms we don't want, and we won't be able to handle. Doesn't matter if you have a permit and you charge people and you mark number 1, 2 to 20 on the parking spots, people are gonna abuse it, their grandma's gonna come to visit, they're gonna have a party, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It just, I can't see that working. Thank you.
I think it'd work great, because we'd start a new business in Brussels, tow truck service. And when it gets used a few times,
Yeah.
people stop parking where they're not supposed to park. It's just a
Okay,
fact of life.
let's do it. How do we do it and see
Well,
who's right?
let's do
This.
one thing first, and then we can go to Councillor Steffler's request along with a request for that report and a request back for the next meeting from staff on their recommendation and how fast they could put no parking on one side of the street in that neighborhood, which would help alleviate some of the problem right away. So we'll do that as a separate motion after this motion. Anything else on the recommendation that was written here? Any comments? Can I get a mover and a seconder, please?
Can you repeat the recommendation, please, Mr. Mayor?
Whereas the council of the municipality of Huron East has held a public meeting pursuant to section 34, paragraph 12 of the Planning Act 1990 with respect to the proposed zoning bylaw 53 of 2025. And whereas no public comments were received on the application, and whereas
We'll just amend that, the public comments were received.
okay, and whereas no agency comments were received on this application. Now therefore, pursuant to section 34, paragraph 18 of the Planning Act of 1990, council concurs with the June 24, 2025 planning report and recommends bylaw 53 of 2025 for approval. Mover and a second. The Deputy Mayor, second by Councillor Fisher. All those in favor? Motion carries. Thank you. Now, before we go any farther, we can have a motion to ask staff to bring back a report for the very next meeting. Councillor Steffler, your request was for.
Just have staff take a look at the current subdivision layout and find out where appropriate additional parking could be obtained and at what cost to us, the municipality.
And just to save a second motion, can I tag on to yours that they also bring back information of restricting the neighborhood to parking on one side of the street only?
Sure, yeah, that's fine. Good.
You can sponsor, she's got to deal with it.
Why are you smirking?
On your contract.
It was made by Councillor Steffler. I seconded it. Because I added on to it, that's why. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor? Yeah, motion carries. Thank you. 10.2 planning report, the draft plan of condominium 40 CDM 01001 municipality or municipally referred to as Bridges.
Great, thank you, Nick. So this is just an information report for right now as an update on the next steps, Bridges condominium and the progress there. So back in 2024, McPherson Builder has submitted an application for a minor red line amendment to the draft approved condominium. That's created as 3.5. That was subject to conditions from 2001. So this minor amendment is proposing to reconfigure some lot dimensions to comply with today's zoning bylaw. It reconfigures the blocks and units to accommodate servicing blocks and access blocks. It also adds a block to accommodate the acoustical barrier proposed along the northern lot lines to mitigate noise impacts from the abutting industrial lands. There was a noise impact study accompanying this proposal that was peer reviewed and outlined the details of the noise barrier proposed. So the red line application was initially put on hold by the municipality until the deficiencies of phases 1 and 2 were addressed. Since then, the developers have been working with Huron East and have come to an agreement to address these deficiencies and are moving towards moving the remainder of the development forward. So part of the minor amendment, we're also suggesting that the original conditions of the draft plan, like I said, were approved in 2001, also be updated and reviewed to be in line with today's standards, including the addition of a lapse date for draft approval that was absent from the original conditions. And these conditions have been reviewed by the municipality and the solicitor. It's also proposed that a new development agreement would be drafted for the remaining phases. And the agreement would also address the requirement for existing deficiencies to be addressed and the timeline at which that would happen. So I also see in my report, I included, I think figure 3 shows the location of the proposed obstacle barriers. So there's 2 portions of the noise wall required to address the noise mitigation issues raised in the past. The noise wall is proposed to be treated as a common element of the condo corporation. And one section of the wall is required to be on municipal property, just adjacent to Dursal's lands. It's proposed that an agreement would be entered into that would state the maintenance and costs associated with this wall. And that would be the responsibility of McPherson and the condo corporation. So no maintenance or cost would be downloaded to the municipality because of this. And then lastly, I'll note that the noise study notes that the units along that northern property line should have a maximum window height of 10.5 meters above grade to further mitigate noise impact from Duracell. So it's anticipated that the zoning amendment would be applied for following this application to regulate window height. It would also remove the holding zone on those lands once the acoustical barrier is completed to municipality satisfaction. So a formal recommendation on the submitted red line application will be brought to council in coming weeks. So no recommended action at this time, but myself and staff here are available for any questions or anything else that council has with this.
Although I'm happy to see something actually go ahead, it's frustrating to see this now. Because if they were gonna put up the wall a long time ago. Design Concrete could have had an expansion, could have been doing a bunch of other things, and everything would have went by the wayside. That 2.5 meter on the window shade, I've heard that number before, when we talked about this wall with other negotiations. But is that the top of the window, bottom of the window? Because I remember one time they had talked about, because of houses that they were talking about building backing up to that they couldn't even have windows on one side of the house. Is that the case?
At least I think based on the most recent noise study that we've reviewed, I think it was the top of the window height was a maximum of 2.5 meters. But I'd have to
So
confirm.
8 feet off the ground. Councillor Chartrand.
Yes, you said municipality's been working with them on all the deficiencies. Now, one of the deficiencies that we have been dealing with even before Brad was here, that I've had a number of calls, Councillor Fisher's had a number of calls, we've had delegations here. One of the outstanding deficiencies is the top paving of road of sections 1 and 2, that still has not done yet today. They had given us timelines when we paved Front Road. The contractor was gonna work with the paver company to, while they're there, do it. That fell through the cracks. It was just excuse after excuse after excuse. And those roads never got paved and are still not paved today. So have we reached an agreement, a timing as to, because we had said we weren't gonna approve anything till those deficiencies were all fixed.
Yeah, so this is just the red line, so this is just modifying the subdivision. The developer still needs to go into an agreement with us. And based upon the information that we've received to date, the contractor or the developer is willing to enter into a new agreement that will incorporate all the aspects, but also incorporate the reality for those deficiencies that are in phase 1 and 2. That agreement will explicitly state that they can't start phase 3 or 4 until they deal with phase 1 and 2.
Good.
Okay, and part of it too will be some additional securities for phase 3 and 4. And those securities won't be released even if there was substantial completion until phases 1 and 2 deficiencies are addressed. So it's lots of catches in there, but our solicitors in the process of drafting that agreement as we speak. So
I was just asked about it again the other day by 3 people who live there.
it's moving at a snail's pace, but it's moving.
And just for clarification, that will also clarify the fact that we will be getting paid for plowing in their condo moving forward.
discussion matter we can discuss at the time we bring the development agreement forward.
We haven't been charged them the date.
No, I know, but technically we should, because it's not a project. We're providing a service.
They were supposed to take care of their own road maintenance to begin with.
Yeah, that fell through a lot of cracks. Counselor Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Two things, if I may. I thought when that gentleman from McPherson's came in, whenever it was, January. And there was 5 things, something to do with sewers and easements and such, that they had to be done by the end of June. Is my memory wrong?
Oh.
These were things that had been going on for 5 or 6 or 10
Yes,
years.
Counselor Fisher, you're referring to, and I realize it was a long time ago, but that meeting was in closed session, so we can't enter into discussion about it right now.
Sorry, I thought we were in open on that part of it, Mr.
No,
Mayor.
that's
Thank you.
okay. That's half a year ago.
Yeah, okay. My second one is, this, us owning the, wall. Shay, how long is that portion of, sound barrier that they want to put on our property, please?
Just give me 1 second.
32 meters.
32 meters, 100 feet. Their previous track record with us, McPherson's, I'm not keen as a counselor and as a constituent of Huron East owning a wall that they say they're gonna maintain. I just don't trust them at all. So I would ask that if we go ahead with this red line and we have a wall on our property instead of theirs or Duracells, that we get some kind of bond or some kind of money in the bank. Because when they sell all those places and McPherson's has no more to do with it and the condo committee, whatever, takes it over, I think we could be holding the bag on a wall. So I would ask that that be part of the agreement, that I don't know how these things work, a bond or whatever.
Okay, so just for clarification, we're not finalizing anything tonight.
No, I
We're
realize that,
just
Mr. Mayor. I was
updated
asking that
on-
this be
On where the
included.
discussions are, and it will be council's decision at the end of the day. If we agree or disagree with the agreement and whether we want to move ahead with it, so we will have final say. Before anything is signed by the municipality. So this is just updating us on a stepping stone towards a final agreement. Is what it is at this point. So the request, council's now aware of the request that they want 100 feet of it on our property because of the design. As far as any final arrangement to make sure that the municipality is free and clear and does not have responsibilities, we certainly can make sure all of that is in the agreement at the end to the satisfaction of council.
Thank you.
Anything else, Shay? No? Okay, so there was no motion. That was just an information session. We are down to 12.1, Fire Department Fire Service Review. Glenn, welcome.
Evening, Mayor, councilors, see you. I believe everybody's got the big book on all the pages to read on this. I'm not sure how many people have actually went through the whole thing other than myself, but there's a lot of reading material there. As was presented earlier, there was 48 or 47 recommendations, and that's basically the part that I wanted to address overall. And then we get into some questions. So basically, I'm going to take those recommendations and as mentioned, part of them are operational, part of them are strategic. And we're going to review each one in more in-depth and come up with a strategic implementation plan that encompasses not only the recommendations themselves, but achievable timelines, some of the required resources to make them happen, and also the feasibility or the prioritization of those recommendations. And I'd like to bring a plan back to council within the next 90 days. And even with that said, doesn't mean that we're not working on the plan now. A lot of the items we've already had some activity take place. So a couple of them we've completed and a number of other ones we're in working through them. So basically the ones that we can deal with on the day-to-day operations of the fire department, we're gonna address them immediately. And any ones that require, council approval or budgets or additional resources, we'll come back to council and put that before everyone, and we'll get your feedback and comments on that. So I guess it's asking that you accept this report, and we'll start working on the recommendation included in it.
Glenn, if I can, when I was looking through the list, all the ones that said, what in 3 years, staff involvement or whatever, I forget how it was phrased. Certainly had no concerns about those. And even some of the ones with dollar values attached to them, some of them were not major amounts. And when I think the bunker suit one, the comment was it was about $20,000 or something, but I think in the last few months, council's become much more aware of the fact that we need a regular replacement routine to make sure that we're always compliant with stuff like that. Certainly the 200 to 700,000 for the test unit, or I forget what it was called, jumped out pretty hard. Now Lyle commented about the fact that the fire marshal's office has some of those units that can be borrowed. How often would a single fire department have to actually use a device like that for it to become beneficial for the people training on it? And two, how many people could you run through a unit in one evening? Or if in fact you can if we can wait to get one from the fire marshal's office, whether it be 6, 8, 10, 12 months down the road, if you had one for a week, could we schedule all 3 fire departments so that during the course of the week, they all have an opportunity to have it at their station, use it? So one, that we make the most beneficial use of having one borrowed, and two, not have to pay $500,000 to buy our own.
Yes, and good points there. So the trailer itself is a fairly good trailer for training. Unfortunately, you need qualified personnel to run people through this trailer. You can't just borrow the trailer yourself and run it yourself. You have to get qualified people. That's why you have to book it in advance, and you have to book the staffing to come, unless you have internal people qualified to run this trailer. We may have a couple that could assist in it, but we wouldn't be able to run the trailer ourselves. So purchasing a trailer wouldn't do us any good because we would have staff to run it anyways. So we have to focus on, booking the time, bringing that trailer in. Basically, when you run that, it's fairly involved with the setup and running people through it. So we'd be looking at, it would have to be a weekend activity, that an all-day event, and in which case at that point, we could probably run between 20 and 25 firefighters through it in a day. So we'd be looking at, depending on, what staff was available, I think we could, once a year, if we can book that. There is 2 in the province of Ontario. One is in the northern part of Ontario, and one sits in the southern part of Ontario. It is booked fairly heavy, but mostly for a lot of the full-time fire departments, because they have the staff to run it. And the volunteers struggle to book qualified people to come and assist when they run that trailer.
Just to follow up on that comment, if in fact you could get the trailer, are you allowed to hire your own qualified trainer to come and do the training on it? Such as, if we knew of someone out of the Stratford or the city of London that it was actually qualified to do the training, can we hire that fireman on our own on a weekend if we have access to the trailer?
Yes, we could.
Okay.
So the criteria to have the trailer is having qualified people to run it. It doesn't state who those people need to be.
Okay, Councilor Chartrand.
If we know there's a training going on with this trailer, say in North Huron or Stratford, whatever, could we schedule our fire department to go there?
Absolutely.
Cause that's something we can look at too, cause when there's training in the area.
But if you could imagine it, if we got the trailer in our area, we would have enough of our own staff to
Oh,
run it.
yeah, for
So
sure.
another fire department is probably gonna do the same thing, or else the local fire departments around them, for us to come, any distance to get our people in is highly unlikely that they would have the space for us.
But
It's a possibility to look at, yes.
Counselor Stepper.
Now what, if we were to buy one, it's 500, 700,000, would there be enough use from other areas to rent it from us? That would be neutral.
That's a possibility. Again, we're back to the staffing, right? If we're gonna own the trailer, then we would have to have people qualified.
How
Run
many
it.
people would that be? I have no.
It takes five.
Five.
five
So we need
qualified.
5 people, or maybe 10, obviously, to
Yeah.
qualify it and then rent it or release it to other fire departments. They all need it anyway, right?
Right, yeah.
Other fire departments, so.
And then you need,
So I would think if we're gonna buy it, we would want to make sure we have the staff to go with it. Correct. So we can look after it, yeah.
and a vehicle they're gonna travel in and haul the trailer with.
Well, they can come to us.
It'll start to, well, but as Glenn says, they may not wanna travel that far. If it's a full days of training that they're doing. Do you wanna drive 3 hours kind of deal, do a full day of training, then drive 3 hours back? I don't know. I've never been involved with it.
Is this training mandatory once a year or every 5 years, or is it mandatory?
The live fire training is mandatory. The use of a trailer to do it is not mandatory. There are other options.
That's, yeah,
Good question, thank you.
there are other options than actually using the trailer.
Correct. And for example, we have one scheduled here this year where we're gonna do live burn inside a house.
Right.
And we're bringing in instructors to look after that. So we're doing the
Makes a lot
same
more
thing
sense.
on a cheaper level.
Just
Meeting
cost of the house.
certification.
Did you have a question? Deputy Mayor? No, okay. Any other questions for Glenn at this point? Okay,
I got,
go ahead.
on the same topic as with one of the recommendations, and I guess it's a question to the CAO. We were gonna have a report, come back to council before you retired. Cause we had a rough, report of if we were to sell this building, this building, this building. We could look at possibly building a new fire hall somewhere if we bought land. Where is that report? and When are we gonna see it?
I think we're targeting for the August meeting to bring it forward.
Cause there was a lot of what ifs in that first report, if we could sell all these different properties at a certain rate of money.
Yeah, there's those what ifs, and of course, there's also the question about the existing station too, and probably with some cost, and I know. Chief Ackerman's working on getting all that information and gathering it, so we just got a report from the consultants on the engineering side of it, and we're just waiting for some tradespeople to give us some costs on that.
Well, we heard that we can't add to the building, but we could be doing, internal stuff in the building itself. But I was just wondering where that report was at, cause we were hoping to see it.
Yeah, if I could add to that. So we are running two kind of parallel scenarios going. One is with the new building and one is with the existing one. We brought in, engineers, contractors to the Seaforth building, and we're just waiting to get those reports back from all them. We received one yesterday. We got two more.
And when we get those reports, council, whoever that may be at the time, because
We'll make sure you're not gone yet.
this is not, no, but I mean, this is, we are gonna go to a new fire hall, this is not gonna happen in a year. Correct. You gotta buy land, you gotta sell land. It's gonna take time to do all that if in fact that's the road that we take.
Correct. Sure. At least we'll have that direction.
Right.
Although I recommend if you're building a new one, don't sell the land till after the new one's built. You need to sell the part of the truck.
You might have more.
Yeah. Or not the old building down yet.
Okay. All right, can I get a mover and a seconder to, oh, where am I on here? Oh, just turn the page over, okay. Mover and a seconder, and the motion reads that council of the municipality of Huron East accept the fire service review as presented by the emergency management group. Mover and seconder, Counselor Steffler, Counselor McGrath, all those in favor. Motion carries. Thanks, Glenn.
Just one.
The next section was the asset management update. Welcome, Denise.
Thank you. So we had Public Sector Digest present today, the asset management plan. This report's just kind of a high level summary of where we were when we met the July 1st legislation versus this now new asset management plan being presented with, for the July 1st, 2025 legislation. And then, so this is just looking for approval of that plan, to implement the recommended 1.5 tax increase on the tax funded assets. And then a couple councils ago, we awarded Watson for a water and wastewater rate study. So just my recommendation is that we defer that recommended increase that's suggested in here to when those rate studies come forward.
I have a question before I get him over in a second. I certainly agree with what's here, and I'm gonna say in the last 2 years, council's taken a big step forward in better understanding our financial position and doing something to get ahead of the curve, which is great. But at the end of the day, when we pass this, what stops council from when we get the budget going, jeepers, there's no way we're gonna pass 5% this year. How do we handcuff ourselves so that we actually follow through? I guess is my question.
Your question to me.
I'm not sure who I'm asking.
If you, yeah, ultimately, if you come, when we come to the 2026 budget time and you override that decision with a different decision, this is gone. You commit to it, we have to remember that, and that would be what we would bring forward at the budget time, but.
Like, I do realize at the time we actually review the budget, if something hits the fan and that was completely unexpected, we may have to always make an adjustment. But when we pass something like this, I want people to understand that do your regular budget. And then at the end of the day, once you approve that, acknowledge the fact that you're just adding 1.5 to it at the end of the day, because that's the best way to handle it. Don't put it in there and say, oh geez, we can get it down to such and such. Because you're only robbing from what you said you needed to do to begin with. Can I get a mover and a seconder for the 1.5%? Counselor Steffler, Counselor Newell. That the council of the municipality of Huron East approve the updated asset management plan. And that the council of the municipality of Huron East implement the recommended 1.5% tax increase for asset management. And that the council of the municipality of Huron East defers the rate increases for water and sanitary sewer to the rate study project. All those, Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, just a clarification for you to Denise, but when you do your 2026 budget, 1.5 will be in there already. We're not adding it on at the end of the day.
Yeah, what will be presented to you, or I guess, what Bertie will present through his budget, because the strong mayor powers, make that a little bit different, will already have that incorporated, correct?
That's what I understood.
Will it be a separate line item, just so that council recognizes it?
Yeah, currently there is, in there is an AMP budget transfer that's in there, so that is probably where I would put this as well. I would keep it with that budgeted line.
Okay, as long as there's good explanation for council at the time, so everybody understands where the numbers are coming from.
Sure.
Okay, right. Any other questions for Denise this time? All those in favor? Motion carries. The Seaforth Golf Course pre-development agreement.
Okay, so, council's well aware, of course, of the Seaforth golf course development. It's been going through the planning approval processes. One of the consent is to enter into agreement with the municipality in terms of how to move forward. This is what I would call it. It's a pre-development or pre-servicing type of agreement. The agreement itself refers to the fact that the developer, when they move forward, will have to enter into a full development agreement for any external services that might be required, as well as for a site plan agreement as well for the internal services aspect of the development. So this at this point in time, staff are satisfied that the property can be serviced. It's gone through its planning approval processes. There's a security as part of that agreement. That's incorporated there, just sort of good faith, amount. When we actually go into a full development agreement, typically that will be 100% of any off-site services. Plus a portion of it for any on-site works. So that's the best explanation I can provide of where we're at with this development right now. Could answer any questions that council, Mr. Mayor.
Councilor Chartrand.
So this is the new development, right? The Stefan development.
I don't know the names.
Okay.
It's the piece on the.
On Front Road.
Just,
So you said that the property meets, the utilities or whatever. So have we resolved the issue of sewer?
No, the main point that we were trying to do with this pre-development agreement is that we agree the fact that there is servicing available and that they provided a reasonable servicing feasibility study that's accommodatable for that. What they ultimately do in terms of connections, and I know where the question's going, is will they connect through bridges or will they connect through a separate line? The goal obviously is for us to work with the new agreement with bridges, that the connection will be through bridges. But until that's in place, we kind of have to be a bit vague. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah, except the fact that we haven't come to the conclusion whether we own the sewer system in the bridges.
Well, that will be incorporated in the agreement with bridges, but we haven't entered into that agreement yet.
Okay.
Yeah, but
And normally
that'll
after
be settled through that.
the top goes on, normally we take it over, right?
I'm pretty sure we think we own it.
Well, we think we do, because if the sewer was to break down tomorrow, they'd be calling us up to fix it.
Yeah. Councilor McGrath.
We gotta find out if there's a condo agreement at Bridges. I think simple. Something to do, and I don't remember much, but something to do with golf carts on the road. One way around it was, it's a condo agreement, we don't own nothing in there. Yes, we plow the roads, we look after the water and sewer, but at the same side of that coin is, we collect the taxes on the house, we collect the water and sewer charge. Coming from the facilities in there. So, if somebody can tell me, yes. It is a condo agreement, we don't own anything. Or we partially own something, or we're going to assume it when it's all said and done, because it boils down to this. I don't know, I guess that's a planning thing, maybe Shay could tell us if she's so.
Sure.
Can you maybe find that out for Shay, there's a condo agreement at the bridges?
But the agreement would not have been with the planning department, it would have been with the municipality, so.
Planning department that brought here.
It's not their agreement.
Came at the last minute.
It would be a Huron East agreement, so it's our responsibility to find if we have one, county would not have that
That's
on
what
file.
Shay did, what you was for. However, we've gotta find out.
I agree with that part of it, Councilor McGrath, but there's condos everywhere, and the bottom line is. I don't have any problem with the piping that they have in their actual subdivision. But the stuff along the road, when somebody else wants to connect onto it, their argument is because they paid to bring it down to that location, that nobody else can use it, unless they pay them. Well, then everybody between where they started digging and brought it down to their lot line, everybody between there and the sewage plant should get a little bit of money from them, because it's the exact same story, is the way it works out. We are still working on this part of it, and yes, if we can find something from the original Tucker Smith or the beginning of Huron East, that was right around the exact time frame, it would be good. And we may need that in our hand before we get this thing resolved.
I do.
Right.
So I can answer the question whether it's a condo agreement. It's not really a condo agreement, if I pardon the expression, but I would call it a bastardized condo agreement. And it was really all stemmed from the fact that the original concept was they couldn't drive their golf carts down the road, so we'll make it into a condo system. It's not really, the way that agreement's written is not written as your typical condo agreement. Typical condo agreements, everything within that condominium complex is completely owned by the condominium, including the water and sewer lines, and they're required to have their own operators that run and manage it. We still collect taxes. The taxes aren't meant for the condo portions of it. It's meant for all the other services. You still pay water and sewer services just like anything else. There's nothing different in terms of how a condo operates. It's just the fact that typically in a condo, and typically condos aren't huge subdivisions, but typically condos will be smaller complexes that might have a service connection that feeds within the condo. For example, this development you're speaking about here. It'll have its own internal servicing and that condominium corporation is responsible for maintaining their internal servicing. It's not the municipality. The way the bridges agreements were written is like a subdivision agreement with some condominium language stuck in throughout it to try to
Or get the golf cart.
try to get it there, so it's a hodgepodge, so it is not a condo agreement, but it's not a subdivision. It's some hodgepodge thing put together.
It might be illegal hodgepodge, that's the only my
It is a
concern.
legal hodgepodge, but it's a hodgepodge.
That's my concern, it's a legal hodgepodge.
I never saw a condominium area that have gigantic single dwelling houses. I've never seen them before. Let's see if all these-
Okay.
Townhome condominium.
We kind of got off topic here because this motion is about the other property. So let's get back to that. That the council, did I get over in a second already? No. Okay, that the council of the municipality of Huron East considered the bylaw authorizing the mayor and the clerk to execute a development agreement for the Seaforth Golf Course development. Not the bridges, the other development. Can I have a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councillor Steffler, second by Deputy Mayor. Any final comments or questions? All those in favor? And motion carries. Next was the Huron Plan Review Report.
Yeah, so as part of the community safety wellbeing legislation that was created back in exact 2019. All municipalities are required to go through their community safety wellbeing plans and do a review to make sure that the priorities remain consistent and same. So that was undertaken by staff or by the various staff that were part of the collective municipalities. It's presented herein, basically kind of just confirming the fact that the priorities we've established thus far still remain in force and valid, so. A lot of the information about this is being presented and through social media and so on once it's approved by the various respective councils. Happy to answer any questions the best I can.
And no questions, Councillor Steffler?
Yeah, no, it's an excellent plan. It's actually, you know, a lot of work by a lot of different organizations, so it's good. Brad, just for you being pending retirement, and you were pretty prominent on that development committee. Is there somebody replacing you or?
That's.
That was the whole question in the report.
That's the next report.
All right. Can I get a mover and a, hang on, what section are we, am I doing 12.4 or 12.5?
12.4 right now.
12.4, okay. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Councillor Chartrand and Councillor Fisher, that the council of the municipality of Huron East to approve the community safety and well-being for Huron Plan Review Report. All those in favor? And motion carries. And yes, the next one was asking whether we wanted a member of council or whether we wanted our new CAO to replace the exiting CAO on that committee. Is there any comments or preferences? I think it made sense to put Jess on it because it also talked about, if I remember correctly, there's another meeting a couple times a year that having the knowledge from one helps with the other, kind of back and forth. So that seems to be the most efficient use of work power. Yeah. Okay, so can I get a mover and a seconder? Councillor Morrison, Councillor Wilby, that the council of the municipality of Huron East remain with the current CAO appointment or appoint a okay. So with the current CAO appointment to the Community Safety and Wellbeing Oversight Committee. All those in favor? And motion carries. Okay, Seaforth homecoming support. That the council of the municipality of Huron East to approve $5,000 in-kind support to the Seaforth Homecoming Committee through the municipal grant program at the request of the Economic Development Officer. Any comments? Councillor Chartrand.
Yeah, I have an issue with the word in kind. I can think of when the municipality worked at the plowing match and we put in hours and hours of our employees for in-kind work. We did in-kind work when we put the splash pad in, and Barry kept track of all the hours of the employees. And it was like $30,000, and there was never any money come out of an account to give to anybody. In kind means we'll kindly do that work for you, so it's like a donation. It's like a donation. We never gave the Lions bill for the in-kind work that we did. It was kind of like a donation, and I know we've never donated anything yet to homecoming. So that's where I was hung up on. We're saying we're gonna do it in kind, but then we wanna take the money out of the grant program to do it. If municipality wants to do the work, and say, we're not gonna charge you this fee for this, so we're gonna pick up garbage today, instead of cutting trees down, the employees are working, they're getting paid, like, that's in-kind work. How I understand the word in-kind, unless I'm.
I'm gonna let Brad respond to that.
Yeah, I think the major difference here is that when we talk about it, we use your Seaforth Lions splash pad situation. That was staff working during their normal hours, because this is on the weekend and will be evenings and such like that. It'll be additional cost to the municipality because of the time requirement of the overtime. And on weekends, so we actually as staff would recommend that you look at this as an in-kind grant. Your grant policy does speak to in-kind services being part of the grant process to be able to recover the funds, so. You're still doing work, it's still costing the municipality. It's drawing them away from doing other things, but in particular, this one, it's actually an additional cost because of when it's happening. That helps.
Yeah, it is a long weekend as well, which adds to the cost.
I agree that the staff would be working, but I didn't know whether we needed to be involved in offsetting the permit fees for food trucks. Are they private businesses, the food trucks?
They are, normally those would be the responsibility of each food truck, but they've been requested by the homecoming committee to come and support this event, so we're looking at 5 or 6 food trucks that are coming in.
And are they giving back as far as sharing the profits or anything? Or is this just?
It's just in a promotion to get them to come to the area and support the people that are coming in.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
with the number of people that homecoming is expecting, we don't have enough food services in the area to provide that for the visitors, so they're looking to bring in food trucks to support that and have enough food for everybody.
It's a slippery slope, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
I can appreciate the fact that you get the crowds that we're always hoping that we get, that you want to be able to service the needs of your patron. But we had a long discussion about licenses for vehicles like that at other times, but anyways, that's been the request, and it's been that is the request coming forward.
Makes sense.
Councillor Fisher.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a little aside on the food trucks. The last homecoming we did, I'm pretty sure we had the same amount of food places as we do now. And I really ramped up, had staff on, extra product, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I didn't sell a damn thing more than what I normally sold because everybody else in town was selling food or bringing in foreigners selling food, so that's my comment, thanks.
Which is a valid comment under a request like this, because part of the whole discussion is that
Now, the only thing.
the other businesses pay the property taxes in town.
Yeah,
And if you've got just a special event, to come in and have the municipality to waive the cost of using or being here for the event and not putting anything towards it, but the regular taxpayers are still paying their regular bills. It is that slippery slope. Councillor Chartrand?
Yeah, and besides the local restaurants that we do have here, there's a ton of food planned for the whole weekend. You've got pork chop dinner. There's a
fish, pork chop, chicken, wings, breakfast.
You got breakfast, I think two days, I think, at the Van Egman House, or three, can't remember.
Two.
Two, you got a pork chop dinner, you got a chicken dinner at the Legion, you got a wing night at the Legion, and a fish fry. So I don't know, having additional food trucks on top of all of the food that we're planning to give to the people who come back. I don't know, is it overkill having that many food trucks on top of all the food that we're gonna be?
I'm gonna play devil's advocate for a little bit. To the best of my knowledge, there's 6 places in town to eat. At least 6 that I go to. But you're not gonna have people that are doing activities on Main Street here, walking out to the Freeze King. And walking down to New Orleans Pizza, you know, Junction 8 and Pizza Train, stuff like that, where it's close by, maybe even, well, Tim Hortons is not that far from the other pizza place, but some of them are close enough that they could get regular service, but not everybody will. So we gotta consider that too.
These 6 food events that I'm talking about are specifically designed for the event, for the whole weekend.
Yeah, and to my understanding, the food trucks are coming in for like later in the evening events, like I believe there's food trucks for the street dance. And I think there's some events at the curling rink as well where they're looking to have food trucks. I'm not exactly sure the timing of the food trucks, but I think that they're looking to bring in 5 food trucks because the other places won't be open. Like I believe the boot might be open for some of those hours, but the other places won't be. And to my understanding, those food establishments are not going to be staying open later to accommodate that, so.
Would part of this be to cover licensing? You have to have food available with a liquor license? Would that be part of it, Carolyn?
I don't believe so. I don't believe food is a requirement. I do know that food trucks might be at some of the establishments that have extended their patios as well, like curling club. So it just draws in more people that are partaking in beverages to have food immediately available as well, but I don't think it's a part of AGCO requirements to have food. I could be wrong on that.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the requirements are either for that.
In fairness, I don't wanna squash this going forward at this point, but I think we need to almost take notes of what's happening this year. So that we can understand going forward whether we're doing it right or wrong, or whether we need to make changes to it. Sometimes the only way you learn is by going through it once to find out whether it works.
So just another comment, if they're not given a free pass to come, they're not coming. If we don't let them have.
Potentially, because the permit is up to the food truck owner, yes.
So they don't feel they would do well enough that they could cover the cost of our.
Not necessarily that they won't do not well enough, it's just different practices across different municipalities, right, and different ways of operation, so they're being requested to come in. It's part of a more community feel of getting the food trucks as part of the event, so it's. I guess you're over there, right?
We don't know if they're gonna stay open. See it as an opportunity, right? Pizza Train, your Junction 8, because Junction 8 isn't open that much now. But it's an opportunity and it's busy. Want to make money, they may open, we won't know that unless you ask them. The same as the boot, you say the boot, the Freeze King, like Freeze King closed at 9 o'clock, well, maybe they're not closing at night. Right, what's going on, staying open till midnight there, or whatever, Pizza Train, the local places, that's the only thing. Food truck's convenient, because it's gonna be more in the heart of what's going on, so nobody has to walk to those places you're speaking of.
But Carolyn also pointed something out that I was not aware of, whether I missed it in the report or whether it was there or not, but if they're coming in for the later hours. Events when the regular restaurant would normally be operating anyways, then that does change the scenario for sure.
It is my understanding as well that the homecoming committee has been in discussions with our restaurants, and I think like the restaurants are providing, like I know they're providing food during Summerfest and those events during the day. So I know that they've been speaking to them. But yeah, to my understanding, they just don't think that there's gonna be enough food availability, I guess, during the evening. events.
I'm certainly willing to go along with it at this point. The bottom line is the homecoming committee has put a lot of work into it. I don't know all the work that they've done, and I don't have any time to be involved with what they're doing, but if they've made this assessment, especially if they've taken the time to talk to the food vendors in the area, and this is the conclusion that they've come to, then I'm certainly more than willing to let it happen this time, and let's see what the results are at the end of the day. And just even keeping track of when do the restaurants close and when do these guys actually open up? Might be good information going forward. Can I get a mover and a seconder to accept the motion, Councilor Chartrand? And somebody, Councilor Morrison? Everybody's scared to put their hand up first. You know how many people I see going around the room going, oh, they voted, I'm gonna. The council municipality of Huron East approve 5,000 in-kind support to the Seaforth Homecoming Committee through the municipal grant program at the request of the Economic Development Committee. All those in favor? 2, 3, hands up, please, just so I can count. 1, 2, 3, 4. I would be 5. Opposed?
Counselor Stepler has a conflict, so he won't.
Oh, okay, so 1, 2. So there is only 3 opposed. Have I got that right? Okay, motion carries. Bethel Bible Church grant request. I need help with this one. I didn't really understand what I was reading.
Sure, so they submitted 2 separate requests. The first one was for their annual barbecue. Reading it, it looks like they're looking, they've kind of broke down the inventory sort of they need and the cost of that. And then they submitted a second request for the porta potty rental. So the $160 each month is what their second application was for.
So, and what was the event?
Just their, I believe, the vocational
church.
prep school annual barbecue.
Then they have church service at Victoria Park, Mr. Mayor, in July and August, I think. That's for the porta potty.
So it's a regular event that goes on year after year after year.
And the barbecue's free for anybody that comes. They don't charge anything for the food.
Okay.
They didn't anyway before. I don't know if it's still that way. Don't know.
My concern. And I was a little confused when I was reading this, and maybe I didn't realize it was 2 separate ones. So I kept flipping back and forth, but. How many times are we starting to get requests for something that almost seems like standard operating costs? Because we do this all the time, but oh, the municipality will pay the bill for us. At what point do we say that's not really what the intent was? I thought the intent of the grant program was we've set up something new. It's a one-off. We want to see how it goes. It's no different than the grant program that the municipality year after year after year applied to the county for. Quite often, we get that $10,000, but there were some specific rules. 1, you got a new idea of something you're gonna try, and 2, if it's a good idea and it works out, it's something that could be replicated in other places, so there's a benefit beyond the one time that you do it. If it's, we do this every year, why not just get the municipality to pick up the tab, is not my understanding of what we had planned for a grant application. I don't know what the rest of council thinks, but I do need some comments here. We have a request. Somebody?
What's the total amount between the two?
It wasn't a lot of money.
$249.
How much?
$1,249.
Yeah.
I kind of agree with what you're saying. The grants were a specific thing. It's just telling.
Not a regular event every year.
Yeah.
So that being said, we give the plowman something every year.
That's
We
true.
give the fair something every year, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
And Eggman House every year.
The fair we consider a community event put on by the municipality.
And
Or
this-
in cooperation with the municipality.
This is a community event, hopefully Bethel Bible will bring more community in for these two events.
Yeah, I struggle with the hot dog barbecue things. I think a lot of organizations do that. I do fully approve the porta potties. That helps us as a municipality.
Yep.
When they're running a church service. That's how my vote will be going.
And I actually think that's a pretty reasonable compromise.
Right.
I do agree, if there was a big event that we thought was going to be bringing a bunch of people into town. And it was gonna be a benefit to the businesses in our community, we'd be happy to put a little bit into it for business perspective. I still need a motion going forward, Councilman Brad.
It's a very slippery slope to get into, because if somebody else wanted to try a fundraiser and give the food away, come to us for money to attract people to whatever the KPI may be, then you can't turn that down if you're gonna accept this. It's just a double-edged sword. Unfortunately, some of these things, there's no right or wrong about them. It's just, what do you do?
Councilor Stephanie.
Like most of the barbecues that we have up on the main street, whether, and it's by donation. Right, so there, if you put a donation, you still give it away, you can make your costs back, I think. I agree, if you start buying supplies for barbecues, you're gonna have every small organization looking for supplies for barbecues. But again, we have a grant program is here.
This is not a fundraiser, it's a social event for them.
I have one
They're
at
not
my house
charging.
I have one at my house every October, but I don't think the municipality is gonna pay for my family to come for dinner.
Well, you could apply and find out.
Didn't invite us.
Councilor Chartrand, and we need to wrap this up.
I'm okay with the second grant to pay for the porta potty for their vital events at the Danita.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that?
I'd second that.
Second by Councilor Delp. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor? And that motion carries. So how do we handle the first request then? Or just,
We will need to put another motion on the table if that request is denied or approved.
okay, so then I do need a motion on the floor to be voted on. For the first one, moved by Councilor McGrath, second by the Deputy Mayor. All those in favor of supplying the grant for purchasing the food for their barbecue. Councilor Fisher is
In
one
favor.
favor and opposed. Motion's defeated. Okay,
And 9-1,
yeah,
okay.
okay, Medical Minor Ball Committee Significant Event Request. Can I get a mover and a seconder, please? Moved by Councilor Morrison, second by Councilor Newell, that the council of the municipality of Huron East declares the wing night and slow pitch games hosted by the Ethel Minor Ball Committee and the two Ethel men's and ladies slow pitch teams on Friday, August 8, 2025 at the Ethel Ball Diamond located at 44477 Grand Road, Ethel, Ontario, from.
I think I did that last time too, it's Brandon Road, so apologies.
From 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. as a significant event. Councilor Stefan.
Just have one comment, and I don't know, this is just administrative. When they're submitting it to the AGCO, not the LCBO, so does that change anything for us, Jess?
Should be easy.
It is the AGCO, they would.
Yeah,
be in
does that matter
contact
like for
with
us?
them.
Do
It
we have to
doesn't matter for
reapprove?
us.
Is it correct? No?
No,
Okay.
our portion is just providing them with this letter that
Thank you.
recognize it.
All those in favor? And motion carries. We are down to council reports, Deputy Mayor.
I think that's right. Our last county council meeting was our audit day as well. That was the day that Treasurer Michael Bloomhagen also presented our year-end financial statements. Some of the key points out of that, we had a surplus of 2.1 million last year. So we decided to move 1.8 million to general reserves, and we're putting $339,000 into the homes for the age reserve as well. One of the things we found out, and I think the mayor wants to talk about this as well, Michael explained to us that a lot of the money that we have, he has that in bank accounts versus investments. So I believe the mayor wanted to talk about that. We did ask for a report at a future council meeting to find out about different investment options, and he can explain that to us. Just a point of note, we've used up 89% of our winter maintenance budget to date so far, so we're hoping for a really light fall and early winter. This 2.1 million, I guess the 1.8 million that we did move to reserve, it kind of represented a 3.25 relief on our 2026 levy relief if we are able to use that. So if you understand that. And Michael or Mark Nokus presented a report on newcomer experiences of housing here in Perth, highlighting their challenges of getting and keeping housing while dealing with transportation and not in my backyard isms that is commonly found with newcomers. Just when I have the floor, I'm just gonna touch on Blue Water Recycling. Had a meeting there last week about it. We have 9 new trucks ordered. We're only going to get 5 this year. They're almost 2 years out now when you order a truck. So we're placing orders now for 2027. Friends, just say, usually in a month, there's 400 to 4,200 lifts Mars does for their bulk waste that they get rid of. One of the problems that we're starting to find out about and have is lithium battery disposal. Twin Creeks landfill, where some of our landfill does go from Blue Water, they've had 4 fires in the last month there with people throwing out lithium batteries in vapes and electric cigarettes and stuff like that. So just for that, we're going to put some cameras in the facility there in Huron Park and train them right on our pile of stuff that comes in overnight or during the day. So that way we can pick up any sort of heat that's rising out of that a little bit quicker, because once the flames happen, it's gonna be too late to save that building. So this is the way here, might just save a building in case like that. So Michelle was showing us a container that they're starting to come out with where we could actually buy one and put it here at the township hall or the whereas if people had lithium batteries they want to get rid of, you can dispose of it in there. And if one ever did decide to go on fire or cause a fire, then it sort of melts from the inside and it covers that fire and puts it out. It's a one and done container, but might be a good idea. She was going to get us some costing on that. So and the only other thing we're working at Blue Water is come 2026, ICI, so industrial, commercial, and institutional will not be covered for recycling. But now it sounds like the government is starting to change that a little bit, so I guess we have to stay tuned for that, so.
Thank you for that. And what the deputy mayor was commenting on, Denise, before our open session started this evening, I had asked Brad if he knew what we received for interest on our investments. I don't need an answer off the top of your head, and I don't need a big long report. If you just give us a general idea at the next meeting, that would be nice to just see that. And the reason is that as the deputy mayor pointed out, the county certainly has a lot more money invested from their reserves. And there was a request by one of the councillors asking for a report to come back, believing that we'd be better off if we had an actual person that constantly worked with the funds from the county to keep them invested and in the right spots. I'm quite familiar with those rules and regulations because of Mid-Huron landfill. We had $5 million there for our closure costs, and so we've tried everything under the sun. And within the last year, and I'm certainly glad before somebody got into power, because our stock would have been crap. But we dumped all of our stocks and just put them in laddered long-term investments and short-term investments, so that we've always got cash on hand whenever we need it. And by doing that, we were showing a little more due diligence, and we got better rates because of doing that rather than putting everything into one lump sum, which seems odd. The counties get 3.25% just in their bank account, they said. Now, the other side of that is, that's pretty good. I would suggest that if we build our reserves back up, we should ask the county about partnering. If they can get much better investments than we can, I think we could trust them with our money. Could they invest any of our monies with their bank account? If we're getting 2% and they're getting 3.25%, why wouldn't we ask them just to put it in their bank account? I don't think they'll stiff us at the end of the day. It could be something to move forward, but it'd be interesting just to see the kind of numbers you come back.
Yeah, no problem, I can do that, and we, currently just our bank account, we get prime less 2%, so we. As prime fluctuates, so our bank account, especially over the last year, high, we did quite well when there was funds in there, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good, good. Are there any other boards, committees, meetings, or seminars? Gloria?
I attended SHIP on June 11th. So they finished the off-road vehicle map. They've been working on it forever, and they provided a copy to the OPP. And I think we can get a copy for here. They're printing it, so I don't have it yet. There's a new girl. We've had MTO at this meeting as long as I belong to it. And there's a new girl at it and representing MTO. And she said there's a possibility of road safety community partnership grant. So she sent me more information on it, and Carolyn has that info, so so that kind of goes towards things if when we are working on our roads, it could go towards sidewalks and that type of thing. So I just wanted to make us aware of it, that it's out there.
So you said that map is getting printed, so I'm assuming they're gonna have the ability to either sell or hand out paper copies. Are they gonna have a copy of it online also?
Yeah, they are.
Okay, good. Any other boards, committees, meetings, or seminars anybody needs to comment on this time? Seeing none, how about any requests by members? Councilor Morrison.
Could we just get some form of update on the top coat timeline for Sports Drive as well as the repaving of Thomas Street? It was meant to be done in 2025. It's halfway through the year. The previous public works manager told me spring, and that's months gone, so I don't know if there was an update on when the contractor might do that.
My understanding, I was told this morning that they're actually doing it today, so.
They were.
Okay, there you go.
That's official.
There you go.
Glad you brought that up.
Ask Justin, he'll get it done.
Yeah, perfect. Are there any notices of motion by members of council? Seeing none, any announcements? Councilor Steph.
Just a couple there, the Rural Opportunities Fund came out today. There was a big announcement in Clinton that Lisa and their team were, so there's some grant deadlines that are exciting to see. Now, I don't know how they're gonna divide that amount of money by there, but that's good. And then the Seafood Homecoming just has a full list of events and everything that will be shared, and Carolyn has been part of it, so I just want to make sure everybody's aware, and I think Mayor, you've been reached out to say welcome for the opening.
Staff already helped me with that today.
Yeah, there you go, thank you.
Councilor Sharkey.
Yeah, I just wanted to, I emailed you, but I'd like to give a shout out to the Young Bucks hockey team. The final numbers came in for the Matt Hooter Memorial Tournament. And they have donated $25,000 to the Seaforth Hospital, which I think brings them up to about $100,000 from the last report that we got from Lisa. So they continue to run that event, and our Seaforth Hospital is the beneficiary of it, so.
Okay, that's good. Any other announcements? Nothing under other business, so bylaws, can I get a mover and a seconder? Moved by Councilor Morrison, second by, I thought I saw him, Councilor Fisher. that be it hereby resolved that by law 47, a bylaw will appoint the Director of Public Works to be given first, second, third, and final readings, signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. All those in favor? Motion carries. Mover and a seconder for bylaw 48, Deputy Mayor, Councillor Morrison, that be it hereby resolved that bylaw 48, a bylaw to appoint the Chief Administrative Officer, be given first, second, third, and final readings, and signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. All those in favor? And motion carries. Bylaw 49, a mover and a seconder, Councillor Morrison and Deputy Mayor. That be it hereby resolved that bylaw 49, a bylaw to appoint the clerk be given first, second, third, and final readings, and signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. All those in favor? Motion carried. Mover and a seconder for bylaw 50. Councillor Morrison, somebody on this side of the room. Councillor Dalton. That be it hereby resolved that bylaw 50, a bylaw to authorize the signing of a transfer payment agreement with the Office of Fire Marshal be given first, second, third, and readings and signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seals of the corporation be affixed thereto. All those in favor? Motion carries. Mover and a seconder for bylaw 51. Councillor Stepler, Councillor Chartrand, that be it hereby resolved that bylaw 51, a bylaw to deem lots not part of registered plan of subdivision be given first, second, third, and final readings, signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. All those in favor? And motion carries. Mover and a seconder for bylaw 52. Councillor Dalton moved, it's an auction. Councillor Morrison seconded, that be it hereby resolved that bylaw 52, a bylaw for the Dill Municipal Drain be given first, second, third, and final reading, and signed by the mayor and the clerk.
Just first and second reading, sorry.
Sorry, first and second readings and signed by the mayor and the clerk. All those in favor? Motion carries. Mover and a seconder for bylaw 53. Deputy Mayor, Councillor Wilby, that be it hereby resolved that bylaw 53, a bylaw to amend the zoning bylaw be given first, second, third, and final readings, and signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. All those in favor? Motion carried. Mover and a seconder for bylaw 54. Councillor Chartrand, Councillor Morrison, that be it hereby resolved that bylaw 54, a bylaw to authorize the signing of the development agreement be given first, second, third, and final readings, and signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. All those in favor? Motion carries. Mover and a seconder for bylaw 55. Deputy Mayor and Councillor Newell. Be it hereby resolved that bylaw 55, a bylaw to authorize the signing of the transfer payment agreement with the Minister of Transportation be given first, second, third, and final readings, signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. All those in favor? Motion carries. Mover and a seconder for confirmatory bylaw 56, Councillor Wilby and Councillor Fisher. That be it hereby resolved that bylaw 56, a bylaw to confirm the cities of council be given first, second, third, and final readings, signed by the mayor and the clerk, and the seal of the corporation be affixed thereto. All those in favor? Motion carries. Just before the adjournment, Brad, when I saw the agenda with 600 and some pages, and then I see 15,000 bylaws here, I was thinking you were getting everything off of Jessica's plate so she could coast right through till Christmas. Can I get a move and a seconder for adjournment? Moved by Councillor Chartrand, second by Councillor Fisher, that the time now being 8:53 p.m. Regular meeting do now adjourn until July 8th, 2025 at 6 p.m. All those in favor?